We might have like virtual trainings. You can also take some classes. I know.
Reached out to me.
Here's a picture of
That's great. Welcome.
I said, it's okay, but you can treat one. Yeah.
If I remember correctly, he's one of the speakers for the BFDI Oh, no, but like, I'm Which one are you in? It was
find like how do I get ahead of them in a way that they can't figure out where this thing is going. So how do I keep them curious about my content? And it's curiosity about your own characters, about wonder how they would react to the situation. And it still ties back to your avatar because I guarantee that the initial time you made those characters, there was a reason where you're like, this character is really going to resonate with me or with my audience avatar. And so later, when you put that person through that fight, it's kind of like, oh, that's still going to be relevant, even though it was years ago. The plan of that person is still going to be relevant, ideally, to the audience avatar. Cool, so thank you for sharing all those. Let's keep moving here. If you're tracking, we have our initial audience member, our audience avatar. We have our idea that is now going to create some sense of curiosity for that person. YouTube is now it's getting complicated with AI. It's still kind of the #2 search engine in the world. So maybe that is why it's a curiosity platform too. And then that click is them wanting that answer, right? Let's go ahead and go into our next phase of starting the piece, right? And you guys keep using the word hook, but let's shift to that other version of the word hook. The first thing that you write, the opening to that video, how do you start your story? How do you come up and craft just that part? And also, let's acknowledge that some of us have written before, some of you wrote books when you were little, or comic books, all these things. YouTube is different, and scrolling platforms are different. Those first seconds actually are not your slow burn seconds. You can't kind of like, well, they'll eventually like it. Those first seconds are the most important things to the viewer who just clicked to confirm whether or not they even want to watch this. How do you guys craft that content?
Yeah, so I think you have 3 seconds to your point on shorts. And honestly, start getting competitive on longs as well. You have less and less time to kind of communicate that hook. Probably like 10, 15 seconds to like maybe even less, like 5 seconds. But you want to ultimately lead with, you know, if you're doing a video, let me just think of a video. Like if I'm purchasing like AI generated ads and I purchase like, which actually happened, I purchased like a gorilla couch, it was like $2,000. It's like you're leading with this narrative that I spent a lot of money, so stakes are kind of high. I got this really absurd looking product, can't wait for you to see it. Like you're establishing at the outset, first couple seconds that one, I spent a lot of money, so it's like, how's this gonna go? Like, is it gonna be a return on this investment? 2, there's gonna be something crazy here. And 3, there's like more to come. So you're like, oh, and stay tuned because it only gets crazier. So I think like the hook at its core is just meant to really distill like the idea into just a few seconds, but then also, it's very hard to do. It's like, you know, it's definitely a skill that you have to hone, but in 5 seconds, you should be able to say what the video is about, leave them curious, wanting more, and then also just kind of like build off of what those 5 seconds are establishing. So it's tough. I mean, that's something that obviously you have to do like a lot of reps to get good at, but when you ultimately find a way to hook an audience, it's so satisfying when you come up with a great hook. But yeah, shorts, I think shorts is just so different just because, again, you don't have to earn the click. It's just kind of algorithmically visually served. So like visuals become much more important. So it's like that first frame you're looking at versus like when you're into a YouTube video, you're likely there for like a longer session time. Like you're expecting to watch the video for 5, 10, 15 minutes. So you have a little more leeway with that. But yeah, I'd say you have to win in the first 5 seconds by establishing those points.
Real quick, the video you're talking about where you buy a giant ape, which is now like permanently stuck in your house, I think, right? This
Yeah,
giant ape.
I really can't move it out. It's
It is larger than a room. Look, it is weird that's even in there. Is that ape in the thumbnail?
It is, yeah, it is.
What's the title of the video?
I bought AI-generated ads, and so it shows like the AI generation of the gorilla couch, and then me on the actual gorilla couch to show that, hey, I actually did this.
Okay. In a way, can't you see that he told the story of what this video is going to be already in the title and in the thumbnail? You need to click or you need to access the video one way or another to know whether or not he's going to live up to that promise and he's going to fulfill it. However, he did distill that already once in the title and the thumbnail. So just one trick you can use when you're writing a hook. He's right, it's hard to get really good at hooks, but you know what's really easy to do sometimes is basically just restate your title and show your thumbnail basically like behind you or next to you. And if you guys can read my bio at some time in the future, I don't think it's worth going through all of it, but I used to work for Mr. Beast, I led a number of videos there. And if you ever see a Mr. Beast video and it says like, you know, there are, you know, there's a hot dog, I got every hot dog in the world and something, whatever. It always starts with something like, this is every hot dog in the world! And it's like basically the title and you're looking at the thumbnail. Just, it's an easy shortcut toward maybe that hook. But you guys might have different takes on how you guys hook, especially since you guys are doing narrative content. Sorry for ear blasting you guys with this!
It's true though, it's so true. So good. I always think that you need to either say something or do something or write something on the screen in the first 3 seconds that sort of asks a question that the audience needs answered in order to feel emotionally complete. And it could be like anything. But I think for narrative, it's like, I always start my mommy videos, or my baby show videos with, hey mommy, can you do blah, 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 blah? And then that's like the question, I guess that's like the title that we need answered. And if it's an interesting enough question, then the audience might stay to find out why. Yeah, that's, I don't know, yeah.
I mean, it's obviously working, so that is it.
Yeah.
How do you lead your stories off?
That's a good question. I mean, I feel like similarly, it is very important to hook people in like right away. So usually we'll kind of decide whether it be in the writing room or just when we're going out of script. We'll kind of decide, yeah, like what does the opening scene look like? And it's different depending on the tone of an episode. Like if an episode is a dramatic episode, sometimes it's good to start with like kind of more dramatic scene or like a tee up for what the overall plot is going to be, or like, oh, this is like, or if it's a little bit more of like an action or like or a horror or something like that. Like it's like good to kind of set up almost with like the tease of like, oh, it's like the opening kill of like a horror movie or something like that. Something that's kind of like, oh, something's gonna happen later in this one or something like that. But there's no one way, I guess, to do it, or at least that I've found to do it. I think it just depends on the plot of the episode, and we just kind of go, all right, what's the episode like actually about? What characters, like what would bring people in the most, like in the first,
Right.
because we're trying to keep people's attention of like watching through the whole show. So, because I think both my series are meant to be serialized, so they're meant to be kind of watched linearly. But for Hell of a Boss, for a while, we were releasing on YouTube, and each episode was almost its own event.
Right.
And we didn't quite write it that way, so there was like, if I could go back, I'd probably make a lot more of them, a little bit more like interesting right up front. Because I was thinking, oh yeah, we'll just swap it, because they were months apart.
Or they might discover an episode in the middle of the season, and that's the first one they watch.
Exactly, yeah. So I was like, yeah, we didn't write it like that. So it was kind of like, we did learn afterward, we were like, oh yeah, people can be very impatient. And also sometimes people can be like, you know, like, like I almost felt like we had the Pixar effect of like, every movie had to top itself, you know, where same thing with our episodes. I felt like our episodes had to top themselves. And so when we had an episode that was just kind of like a fun episode, people were like, wait, that wasn't as good as the last one. And I was like, oh no, we didn't write it to be as good as the last one. So, you know, like, so I think you learn as like the platform you're on. Like if you're making a whole season of television, think you have to think about the episodes flowing into each other and how to keep an audience engaged and watching next to each episode. So it's almost like the ending is like more important because it's like, oh, that's the one that will hook people for the next episode. Versus, I feel like on YouTube it is almost the opposite. It's the beginning. It's like you have to have people to watch through to the end.
Get to the end.
Yeah. So that's something that we're navigating because I feel like both we kind of write it. We were and just fully disclaimer, like I'm learning as a writer. Like I feel like now I've written so many screenplays that I feel like, oh yes, I'm a writer. But like I did not feel that way in the beginning. And so there was a lot of learning that went on as we were making it.
Yeah. Shout out to imposter syndrome. I'm sure it's running throughout the room. There we go. All right. You can see my job keeps being like, how do we see that no matter what you're making, we're kind of still touching on the same thing. They're all touching on the idea of a promise to the viewer that was probably made before the viewer clicked, probably in the title, probably in the thumbnail, and right up top they're letting you know this is probably what you're going to get. You're probably going to be okay with what I said this video is going to be and what you got. It's going to be a baby shoe video where she's antagonizing her mother about this topic. It's going to be me buying things like a giant gorilla or whatever. It's going to be a horror episode. It's going to have kills. That's why we're starting with the kill. What's the worst thing that happens whenever you click on a YouTube video? It's like you're trying to figure out how to like fix some device, like get your iPad reset, and it starts with the guy like at Lowe's, and he's like, today we're gonna walk around Lowe's for a bit, and it's like, what? How? Oh my God! 17 minutes in, he opens an iPad, like whatever, like. That is the worst feeling, right? So we want to fulfill a promise immediately, and that's maybe the biggest difference on this platform.
Yeah, on YouTube, and I don't think a lot of creators think this way. I've actually found myself kind of like in conflict sometimes when I talk to creators about this, and especially for segmented content, so if you're doing like more unscripted, just like shooting from the hip content, I always front load the content to put the best segments first. One, because AVD is incredibly important, so if I'm putting out a 30-minute video, and I know my average view duration is whatever, 13, 14 minutes, I want to put the best content for those first 14 minutes to then give me the best opportunity to have a high AVD. And also what it does is it's just kind of like an extended hook. You're still just putting that best stuff forward. And not to say like the slots at the back. If you're watching the video, definitely watch the whole thing. But I'm certainly putting like the stuff that I feel less strongly about later. And I want to kind of like reward you for the click up front. So I'll generally just like look to put the best stuff first.
So Sam's organically going to our next step, right? So we have our audience, we have our idea, we have our hook, we got them. I promise you this video is what you want it to be about. And then so how do we structure the rest of the video? And again, if it's fully scripted or not, it doesn't really necessarily apply. You have to be setting it up in a certain order. He's found like lead with his best stuff, right? That it's important for its having free duration. It also is, I think that you probably have like, and you can touch on this in a sec, you probably have also like one that's not as good, maybe another one that is pretty good, and there's a little bit of a psychological like, well maybe if I wait two more, there'll be a really strong one again, right? So there's like these techniques, but what he's touching on, and this is kind of what for you guys to take away, is the idea of setting something up and paying it off, right? Setting something up, paying it off, setting it up, paying it off. And that is a constant rhythm that you are doing every single time. So, he has a video where he bought large objects, and the setup is like, I'm gonna order the world's biggest pair of scissors. So that's a setup, right? The payoff is not only does he get the biggest pair of scissors, then he starts cutting stuff with them. But now also, didn't we almost organically go into a setup of, well, what even crazier could you order, right? There's organically like I've seen the scissors now, and he's immediately getting you into a new setup, a new payoff. How do you guys use the structure of your video and the structure of your storytelling to compel a viewer to stay? The retention essentially of that viewer. How do you shape your story or your script?
Well, I follow a pretty standard structure of filmmaking, which is you've got your hook, you've got your setup, which is you're explaining who, what, when, where, how, who's in the story, what do they want, and how are they going to get it. So I'll explain the structure first, and then maybe I'll give an example of a video that I could potentially make. And then the next section would be your escalation. Like, okay, so we've explained. Am I going too far?
No, in fact, I skipped the word escalation in my list, so I love that you're saying it.
Okay, yeah, reminds me of Michael. And so you escalate the idea, you've like set it up, you know what the game is, now it's like the fun end games of the script, that's your escalation part, and then you have your trick, like your twist. That's the word. Thank you. Yes. And it's
We
like
did not know.
okay.
You got that.
No, we don't. So a twist is like when you give the audience something they don't expect, and then you have the payoff, which is the reward for them staying. So, for example, if I was making a Red Hoodie Girl video with her Asian mom, the setup would be like maybe the video is like Asian moms when they go shopping, and the hook is my Asian mom negotiating at the shops, and like it could be like the mom like pulling out a really ugly big sweater and giving it to my character and saying, "Buy this, beautiful. It brings out your curves," and then that's like the setup. Like we know what we're gonna get. Hopefully, the mom's negotiating, trying to buy the sweater, and then the next section is your escalation. So they're at the counter. The Asian mom, what do we expect her to do? Negotiate. So she's. I always like the comedy is a set of threes. In other situations, yeah, everything's like set of three. So I will usually have the mom do like three things. Like maybe she tries the first like use a voucher and then that doesn't work. So maybe she's like uses a threat, that doesn't work. She asks for the manager and that doesn't work. So then you do like a flip and like okay, if I was to think on the top of my head, the flip would be the maybe the I just
It's a lot of video creation. Yeah.
Maybe the manager's Indian, and he's like, "Oh, you're a good negotiator too," and they're like going at it, and they're like, "He's negotiating her, and geez, bring the price up," and then she's like, "F it, I'm not gonna buy it," so they storm off, and then the payoff is like in her bag, she already has a shirt, and the mom's like, and the daughter's like, "Why?" And she's like, "Oh, I bought it last week, 60% off online," and I was like, "Oh, why did you just do that, Mom?" Something like that. That's
To kept up, yeah, absolutely. That was very impressive too, that you were just admitting that video so live. Viv, I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts on setups, escalations, payoffs. Or Viv, on your comment?
Sorry, that was so captivating.
Oh, yeah. No, just that I'm sure you have a lot of like structuring your setups, your escalations, your payoffs, even in a strict, very well plotted narrative.
Yeah, well, yeah, the 3-act structure is like what we have to follow, just because it's the traditional, way of like, yeah, like the build up of the plot of the episode. Middle is like where the kind of everything kind of rises to an escalation, and then the final is the climax, which is the resolution and everything. And then obviously again can change depending on the tone of the episode. Some episodes are relatively like natural, it's more just like the characters and their interactions, and there's not a big like fight or villain or whatever. And then sometimes there are. Sometimes it's like, oh, this is a very traditional like setup, villain enacts plan, and then they have to stop villain kind of thing. And so it really just depends. It's fun. To me, it's like I really like character writing, so I like things that are a little bit more intimate, and it's like the drama or the climax is like two characters like having an emotional conversation or a big song or like something that's very cathartic. But yeah, like I feel like structure. We just follow that through, but like what those acts can look like differs depending on the tone of the episode. It also depends on the length of the episode. Depends on the if there's songs in it. Like with the shows both being musicals, figuring out where the songs go is always kind of interesting, because it's like they almost like kind of can break up the acts a little bit, but it's also kind of tricky because it feels like it weights an episode in a certain direction. So sometimes we have episodes that feel like Act 1 is like half the episode, and we're like, okay, yeah, a little tiny second act and then a big third act or something like that. So yeah, I think it just is about feeling out what the episode is, but also like maintaining that you do kind of need that rough framework of structure.
Right. And if you guys don't know things like the hero's journey or the Dan Harmon story circle, any of these things, you should definitely look them up. If you're writing anything story-based, they just give you a nice guide. But to what everybody is still touching on which is rhythmic payoffs, right? we build, we have some sort of conflict, something that's making things harder on us, and then we pay that off only to find something new as a challenge to us. Just like we're saying, where you even though you might make a video that's almost a list, you still have to introduce some sort of sense of a rhythm of, I'm going to reward you every minute, every 3 minutes, something like that, I imagine.
Yeah, if you're doing, let's just give an example, like you're doing a video in which you're like rating fast food restaurants, which is basically, it's listicle content. You're just like going to one segment to the next to the next. But then it's like you're establishing at the outfront, like, oh, whichever food tastes the worst, I'm gonna get it tattooed on me. So that's entirely what you see. It's like, you'll kind of stay, because at the end, now you just introduced like another layer to it. You're starting to layer the content, and now each score matters. You're kind of like watching each, you're like, ooh, that's the highest now. And so if you put your segments in a certain way, you can definitely keep retention, even with like the listicle type of content. So yeah, even like unscripted YouTube content, all these filmmaking ideas apply. I definitely feel like underqualified. I don't know like too much about that. I don't really think of my videos, I guess, as structured as like a film, for instance. But at its core, like the bones of that still apply for sure.
It's the psychology of it, nonetheless, right? Is that there's still a desire to see more, and then you pay it off somehow. I think we're touching on what I want to move into next. But we basically, so again, audience, now we have our idea, now we have a hook, then we have our structure. We know we have to do some sort of setup, some sort of payoffs. Little tip for you if you're writing scripts about like essay content, maybe have those payoffs build bigger and bigger so that the person doesn't really even feel fully fulfilled until that last one's gonna happen. So for instance, in that Mr. Beast video, he might say that, I chomped on every hot dog in the world, or whatever my idea was. But the thing that he's actually saying to you, he'll show it to you at the beginning, but the biggest, craziest version of it won't happen until the end, and he'll give you different little payoffs along the way. Ideally, ones that immediately make you curious about the next setup, the next payoff. But this thing of make you care about the next setup and next payoff, caring about stuff, that's probably the secret sauce that I think most creators probably fail to do. If you followed everything right now, you would still write the same script that AI would write. And right now, your one advantage is that you have a human heart, and you can tell whether or not you give a shit about something. And so let's talk a little bit about how you make it so that your audience is actually feeling the content matters to them. Either the conflicts that you're putting the characters through, or like in topic selection, but just how do we make it so that the mystery or whatever tools you're using are actually gonna fuel the viewer all the way through the content?
So I think like the secret sauce of keeping viewership is kind of figuring out personality-wise what's working. Because like, yeah, at its core, and this is kind of mainly for like YouTube videos, and if you're like unscripted, kind of like doing things out and about, or gaming, whatever it may be, like, I think a lot of people forget that they're an important part of the content just as much as the actual content. Like, the reason people click on a video is important, and that's like driving the narrative, but finding ways to keep people by creating community and like inserting inside jokes and like alluding to things and doing callbacks and things in other videos, and like really creating constant kind of like interaction via yourself, because at the end of the day, if you're somebody who's inserting yourself into the content, like you are a vehicle for, retaining people. So the way that I think about it is like, even if there's a video that maybe like it's not structured in a perfect way, and I'm trying to figure out how to like tie segments together and to like get you to continue watching, I'll just like do something absurd. I'll just kind of like lean on like stuff that AI can't do, for instance, is just like be a human and like do funny things, because I've never had AI make me laugh a single time. I don't know about you, but it's like, and not that I'm a funny person, but it's like you'll just try to do things that are inherently human, that I think people want to watch YouTubers in the first place, because you want to like interact with that YouTuber, you want to hear their thoughts. So sprinkling that stuff in for me has been huge into like really getting audience traction, having them wanting to watch beyond just what the content is.
Cool. But you guys, there are tools for making the audience care throughout all of these.
I think it depends on the topic of your video. I guess I'm always trying to elicit some sort of emotion out of my audience. It's either I want them to feel something, or I want the character to feel something. And this made me think of videos I've made in the past that were more driven by things that I was feeling and whatever I want to say. And I think I'll say two things. I think it's firstly wanting them to feel something, so the topic should always be like maybe a little bit controversial, like in that like people have an opinion about it. And then secondly, the editing is really important because you want to keep them going. And I think even if it's a really great story and emotionally hooking, but it's edited poorly, people will still switch off. So firstly, coming from like a place where you're feeling something or you want someone else to feel something, and I'll like give you an example, I guess. I had this like really bad breakup, and the guy's name was James, and I was like really angry about, sorry to all the Jameses out there, but I was like really upset about some of the things that I had experienced in this relationship, that I like put it into my content. And like I put the idea in my content, and I did this one video because at the time he was so controlled. He was so bad at that. Okay, this doesn't leave this room in case they circle. He was like quite controlling. He wouldn't let me hug men from the front. I could only side hug them, which for me was a bit like controlling. I wasn't happy about that. And even though I tried to like maintain that rule, like sometimes I would accidentally hug a guy from the front and then I'd get in trouble for it. And so after we broke up, I was like, I'm gonna make a video about this. So I did this video like, oh, when I'm with my boyfriend versus when I'm not with my boyfriend. And so when I'm not with my boyfriend, I hug the guy from the front. And then when I'm not with my boyfriend, I just like basically just like dab the guy and don't even like pay attention to the other guy. And so I thought it was funny because it was like a personal situation, it was real. So like sometimes you can like write things from your experience because then people can relate to it as well. I think the more personal and specific your idea is, sometimes the more universal it is. Anyways, I did not, the video did much better than I thought it would. I think it's like 40 million on Instagram or something. But it's the only video where I ever got backlash, like really bad backlash. Like people were like saying really nasty things. I couldn't even go into the video into the comments because my sister's like, don't go there. She was like deleting comments for me because it wasn't upsetting. Like it doesn't bother me because I know it's not me and they're just like having an opinion about something. Oh, actually, this video they were actually attacking me. I think because I thought that that's like, oh, they thought that I was just like a bad girlfriend for like deceiving my boyfriend or whatever. They had a very good opinion on it. Well, okay, sometimes that does well too, I guess. But okay, so that's my first thing I'll say. And then the second thing I'll say with like retention is like just cutting out any space in the video. When you're editing, anything that doesn't drive emotion or drive story, you just have to remove. And you'll find that you might film something for 10 minutes, like it's a 10-minute video, but it might only be 1 minute long because you cut out all the fluff. So I think in your video, if it's not invoking an emotion or anything like that in 5, I would say, okay, sorry. Every like 5 to 7 seconds, you need to be like evoking an emotion, or like they need to be, you need to be doing something that makes them more interested. So maybe that is more helpful in that answer.
All that is very helpful.
Okay. Great, thanks.
James, thank you.
I really loved what you said about the more specific, the more like personal and direct, the more actually universal. Because that's actually something that I've found. I feel like to me, so to go back to the answer, like to just mimic all these other answers, the real thing that makes, I think, things real and separates us from AI bullshit is that we are human and we have stories and experiences that are unique to us, and that it ranges on from who we are, how we were raised, our gender, our ethnicity, whatever it is, and all that is unique. But then there's also just like the literal life of like where we grew up, the state, the country, or whatever. Like all of that is unique to us, and all of that can create unique stories and inspire unique things. And so to me, I know it will never be replaced with AI because it just can't be. And I think it's important to use those experiences in your work because that is something that only comes from you and something we, not that I know everything about pitching shows and stuff, but one of the questions that you'll get asked and one of the questions that you should always have an answer ready for, even if they don't ask it, but just for yourself, is why you? Why do you need to be the one telling the story? Why do you need to be the one with this idea? Because there's so many people out there with ideas. So it's like, what do you bring into this? Why do you want to tell it? And I give this advice to young animators too, because I feel like every so often there's somebody that comes up to me that's like, I want to make a has-been hotel, like I want a hit show on Amazon, and I'm like, that's amazing, and obviously there should always be a goal, but it shouldn't be the goal to have a hit show on Amazon. The goal should be to tell an amazing story that resonates with people. And hopefully that will translate to a hit show on Amazon, But like, if you're going for a hit show, that means that you're gonna make art more like AI. You're gonna make it like, what does everybody like? Everyone likes cats. Okay, like, what does everybody also like? Singing. Let's make singing cats. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that's what AI does. So I think like my advice is always, what do you like and what do you want to tell and what's your experience? And you're right, it doesn't have to be your like identity or your experience. You can always write for like something else, but it's your experience and your inspiration that you put into it. And also like just as you make characters, like for me, I've had a lot of toxic and abusive relationships in my life, and so I put that a lot in my work. There's a lot of it. Yeah, exactly. And like, oh my god, talk about backlash. Like anytime, also to just solidarity, anytime a woman wants to go, hey, here's a bad experience that happened to me, and I'm gonna do it through art. Bad time on the internet. Don't go to the comments. So it's one of those things where, but like that also toughens you, So you just go, okay, because again, it's because it's real. It's because someone watched that and they went, hey, this is kind of me, but in the bad way. I do that. I don't like this, And so, but it also hits people the other way as well. Like people go, oh gosh, like I've definitely felt seen in media and stories that are like about whatever it is that I've gone through, and I feel like that's important. So I've always really liked, I've always really advocated for putting those experiences, and also like the pain that you experience in life, like it can always be turned into something positive in the way of like art, again, like art and expression, but you also like, and I'm stealing this from BoJack, which is my favorite show. There's a brilliant episode about, it's called Good Damage, and it's, I'm pretty sure, and it's about how one of the characters goes through a really tough childhood and then ends up really feeling like she has to use that in her art. Like, I have to use my bad childhood and my trauma in my art. And she ends up writing a kid's novel. And she's like, wait, this isn't what I should be doing with my trauma and everything. And then it turns out, no, like, that is what you should be doing. Like, it's another part of you, and it's also healing and stuff like that. And so I feel like that's also an important thing to remember, is like, it doesn't have to be your negative experiences. It can be the positive experiences, and you don't have to use the negative. But it is also a healthy outlet. I definitely have, so, and it's good either way.
Well said. I think, just to summarize very quickly, that couch over there just gave you great examples of what's called conflict. And sometimes the conflict is insurmountable, and sometimes it's very sad, or sometimes it's something you overcome, but you generate emotion. And he's also talking about generating emotion in identity and identifying with people, but also lots of curiosity too. So use those tools to make it so that people actually care about your content. Also, thank you very much. Give it up for Vivzy Pops.
I know that like a lot of information we said, I know we're getting kicked out right now, as I had actually put this like spreadsheet, I wanted to like give it to you guys, which is like a summary of what I spoke about, like the structure of a story. And if you want it, if you just go on my Instagram, the one shoe, and go to my Beacons link in bio, and just go to the bottom, subscribe, and I'll send it to you. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys.
I was like, I just had to go.
Really? Very cool. And also welcome. When did you sign?
Was it this one?
Sorry.
Schedule stuff. Never mind. I'll repeat it.
Actually, I'm gonna have you wait right here though.
Oh, no worries.
Okay. So, do you know what a daily drop is?
The daily drive?
Yeah.
No, first time hearing about it.
Okay, so daily drop is a very small window of time when you offer certain merchandise. It's super exclusive. We're doing one right now. We didn't offer it earlier. We won't be offering it later on. We came at the exact right moment. We came at the right moment.
Oh, cool.
So what you can do, you can come in here, you can take some photos, videos, you can do a selfie, or we can take it for you. Usually we have some games you play, you earn that merchandise. But right now you can go straight to the merchandise if you want. When you get it, sorry, the line's right over here. When you get that merchandise, cheer super, super loud, okay? Because nobody knows that we're doing this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If you want, while you're here, you're also welcome to talk to any of our employees here. They can answer
cool.
some questions. You get some FaceTime.
Yes.
If you have an issue with your account, you can ask them questions.
Yes.
If you want to get them feedback. Okay?
Yes, I do have definitely a specific question for them. Yes.
They'll be the right people to answer.
Cool.
Can I just hear this, please? All right, you're gonna head right over here to my friend.
Awesome.
I can take a photo.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Important, right? Everybody knows that. I have to call it my TNT. You hear me say TNT, that's title and thumbnail. They're important. We all know this, right? Because if people don't click, then they don't watch. And then all of the time spent making your video would have been wasted. So, in a world where our title and thumbnail, our TNT, and our intros are very highly correlated with each other. They should play off of each other, they're very related. It is better to start off with the most clickable version of your title and thumbnail first, and then use that to then determine what your intro is going to be, versus starting off with your intro and having that set, and then being constrained by what you said in your intro to try to come up with, what's the best title and thumbnail to fit that intro. So that's really why when we say nail the title and thumbnail first, we mean nail the title and thumbnail first. Make sense? Are you guys gonna make your titles and thumbnails first? Okay, yay, love to hear it, love to hear it. I will hold you to that next year in VidCon. Come and find me, tell you if you've done it. But after you're like 90% confident you have a title and thumbnail that you feel relatively okay with, there's a whole other talk. Now it's finally time to start working on your YouTube intro. And for that, we're first going to start with our first 5 seconds. Because, look, you've already done the hard work. Yay, you've done this. You have people's attention. But the worst thing that you can do is just lose that attention in your intro. So, to minimize drop-off from the very beginning, you have to assure people that the promises made by their title and thumbnail are going to be met, right? When I say promises, your title and thumbnail, they make promises. They set expectations for what the video is going to look like, what it's going to feel like. And the biggest promise that we need to make sure that we're meeting in those critical first 5 seconds is something that's known as the plot promise, which is essentially the promise of what the video is going to be about. Let's take a look at an example. So, this, one of my favorite YouTubers, Michelle Curray, love her. Here is a video of hers titled, I've Tried Formula One. And this title thumbnail is already making a lot of promises. Her expression looks a little intense. It's maybe going to be a little bit more of an intense video. She's in action. The format of the video is probably going to be, not a talking head sitting down video. It's probably going to be like an IRL challenge that she's doing. But the one that I want to pay attention to most in the first 5 seconds is the plot promise. What is this video going to be about? And from this, it's pretty clear, right? The video is probably going to be about trying to race Formula One cars, right? That's what she's saying. We look at that and we're like, okay, it's probably about that. Make sense? Yeah? Okay. Now it's your turn. Here's a video. Mark Rober, testing what happens if you jump on a moving train. What is the plot promise that is being set here? What do you think this video is going to be about? Jumping on a train? Yeah? Right, yeah, I like that, right? It's like, what happens if you jump on a train? Like, oh, you're gonna go flying, something else is gonna happen. What are the physics maybe behind jumping on a train? Now, imagine if after, let me mute my computer before this makes noise. Okay, imagine if after you see this is what, okay. Imagine after seeing this, this is the first, like you click into it, and this is what you see.
Today we're going to investigate 5 physics and engineering puzzles using simple demonstrations as we go.
We're like confused, right? Right? Because wait, we're talking about testing what happens if you jump down a moving train, and you are getting some physics here, and hey, that video is probably about physics and engineering, but that's not the plot promise that was set in the title and thumbnail. So that caused confusion. Confusion causes people to click away. And the simplest way to minimize confusion in your first 5 seconds is to follow a 2-step formula in your first 5 seconds. First, match your first sentence to your title. And second, show the thumbnail subject in your first frame. So, that wasn't actually the first 5 seconds of Mark's intro. This is. Let's take a look at it.
This is me on top of a speeding train.
Okay, it was more like 3 seconds, but you get the point. What did we see here? This is his first sentence. This is me on top of a speeding train. oh, that matches the title pretty darn well, right? It's not word for word and that's okay. But the subject, moving trains, speeding trains, that is consistent. And let's look at the thumbnail. Pretty similar, right? It doesn't have to be the exact same thing, but if we see him jumping on a train in the thumbnail and in the first frame of the video, that is great news and that minimizes confusion. It's crystal clear what is happening here. We feel confident as a viewer that we are going to get what we clicked for. And again, your first 5 seconds doesn't need to match your title word for word, doesn't need to match your thumbnail pixel for pixel. It should just be close enough to assure your viewers that your title and thumbnail wasn't clickbait and you are going to receive what they clicked for. Got it? You all feel good about our first 5 seconds?
Yeah.
Great, love to hear that. So after we do this, time for step 3, the rest of your intro. And I know, right, like, okay, the step 3, the entire rest of your intro, but don't worry, it's going to be great, you guys can follow along. And this is where it gets interesting. Because intro length is something that, in general, the shorter the intro, the better. But intro length does vary from creator to creator. Mr. Beast often keeps his intros at 35 seconds or less. Mark Rober, a little bit longer. His intros up to 45 seconds. Cleo Abram, another incredible deep down breakdown science creator, she has intros up to 75 seconds long sometimes. So yes, the shorter the better, but it's not the be-all, end-all. Because what really matters is that no matter the length of the intro, all of them follow the same core structure, which is, after meeting the expectations set by their title and thumbnail in the first 5 seconds, they use the rest of their intro to, number 1, provide context, the setup of what is to come. Number 2, open one or more curiosity gaps. We'll get to that. And number 3, establish something called a USP, also known as a unique service proposition. We'll get to that later. But first, let's start off with context. So the context establishes the what and often the why. So what are you doing and why does it matter? Why are you doing it? And context can be tricky. It's kind of deceptively simple because one of the most common intro mistakes that I tend to see within intros is that people tend to cram too much context into their intro. And, it makes sense. The setup is important, but there's something that I like to think about often, which is this metric called time to value, which is essentially after a viewer clicks on a video, how long is the value that they came for. The longer this time, the more likely they are to drop off. And again, setup is important, but you don't need to establish it all at the same time, all at once, all in the intro. A good prompt to think about is, what is the bare minimum context necessary in order to get the viewer to care? Something interesting with this why concept is that a bigger portion of the why, if you have a deeper story or deeper meaning, just mention a little bit in your intro called the desire that comes after the intro. You can talk more about your deeper why there, but keep the intro shorter if you can. So let's see how Mark establishes context in his intro.
This is me on top of a speeding train, and this is me in a hot air balloon to answer some of the most debated science questions on the internet.
Okay, that was quick, right? That was 7 seconds. But in 7 seconds, what did we learn, right? The first little bit, he established, he met the expectation set by the title and thumbnail, then afterwards, you understand why he's taking on these stunts to begin with. It's to answer the most debated science questions on the internet. Context does not have to be long in order to be effective. That's how he establishes context. After he provides context, that's when we get into opening one or more curiosity gaps. Now, what is a curiosity gap? Well, I like to explain it as the gap between what we currently know and what we want to know. And this gap is one of the most basic drivers of human behavior. Because as humans, our brains are wired to crave closure. So when we're met with an unfinished question or a story that's not finished, a question without an answer, it's like having an itch that we really, really, really want to scratch. Our brains go, ooh, I can really use some closure right now. And that prompts us to stick around and wait for the answers. So we need to open curiosity gaps. Let's see how Mark opens curiosity gaps and watch the rest of his intro now.
For example, my hot air balloon pilot here says he can land me anywhere I want, and yet there's nothing here that resembles a steering wheel, which begs the question, how do you actually steer these things?
So let's steer.
And now I'm on top of the train to learn once and for all why you land in the same slot as you jumped inside the train, but not you jumped on top of the train. But I'm not stopping there. Because today we're going to investigate 5 more physics and engineering puzzles using simple demonstrations as we go. Because our goal by the end of this video is not for you just to know the right answers, but more importantly for you to understand why they're the right answers.
Okay, pretty good intro, right? Like it? How many of you want to go and watch that video now? Yeah. Okay, a couple, right? Yeah, that's more interesting than what I'm doing up here. But what's really interesting is, why is that more interesting than what I'm doing up here? So let's talk about it. Let's look at the first part, I guess, after the context. We have, for example, my hot air balloon pilot says here can land me anywhere I want, and yet there's nothing here that resembles a steering wheel. There's a question, how do you actually steer these things? And then the pilot goes, so we steered, and gets cut off. And there are, I would say, there are kind of 3 mini curiosity gaps, all right here, but they all expand upon each other. So the first one, he establishes a statement. The hot air balloon pilot can land anywhere he wants, but then he puts in this seemingly conflicting information. Nothing here resembles a steering wheel. That conflict, that and yet, prompts us as viewers to be like, that is really interesting. How does he do that? Mark takes that one step further by actually asking the question, how do you actually steer these things? So by asking that question, he then evokes the same question in the mind of the viewer. Now we have that same question. And then even further, the pilot starts to talk and it gets cut off. Right? That's an unfinished story. We know, we're going to get the answer, but not yet. Opens that curiosity gap. We want to keep watching in order to get the answer to that question. And then we have this, right? The next one. Top of the train to learn. Again, he asks a question. Why do you land in the same spot if you jump inside the train, but not if you jump on top of the train? He asks that question. Now we have that question in our heads as viewers. Now we need to get the answer. And then finally, not stopping there, because often we think about curiosity gaps, like, we need to have some gigantic mystery in our intro to open a curiosity gap, and that's not true. He does so here by just teasing, there's going to be 5 more things. Then us as viewers are like, what are those 5 things? What are those 5 puzzles that are coming up? And what are those answers? And just by teasing, this happen in educational content as well. If you say, hey, we're going to talk about a 4-step framework, you think about, okay, we're at step 3, but there's still step 4. I want to keep listening because I want to know what step 4 is, because we hate not having closure. So, at this point, he's met the expectations set by his title thumbnail, he's provided context into why he's doing all these stunts in the first place, and he has opened multiple curiosity gaps. It's great. It's all the foundation of a really great intro. But there is one more challenge that is specifically, it happens throughout all of the YouTube video, but specifically in the first 40 seconds-ish, which is that when you first click on a video on YouTube, this is what you see. And this is before you choose to go and click that button to go full screen. You see all of these nice little distractions on the side panel. And nowadays, there's more content available to us than ever. There's a near infinite amount of content available to us, to the point where many videos have become commoditized. What that means is that for many videos, you pick a video on a given topic, and typically there's going to be another video out there that you can click on that can replace it. It's good enough. It's like a similar enough replacement for that video. So when YouTube serves you all of these different videos to click on as a viewer, you as a creator need to prove to them why your video is the one worth watching, why they shouldn't go and just click on something else that they see that is related. So how do we do that? Well, we establish a USP. This is the unique service proposition, and this is a statement or something that you add that makes your video special. It establishes why someone would want to choose your video over any other video. And while there are many different ways to establish a USP in an intro, most of the time it's going to follow under 3 ways, which is expertise, effort, and proof. We're going to start with expertise. This is pretty simple, but you can signal expertise by just calling attention to some sort of domain experience that you have. So here's like a freeze frame from this video from Wired. So about a history professor answering dictator questions. And in the intro, she says that she's a professor, and she says that she studies authoritarianism. You should never assume that people know what makes you special. I was talking with a registered dietitian, and she makes lots of health content videos, and she thinks, oh, I have registered dietitian in my channel name. People know, right? I'm like, no. You want to be as clear as possible. Say it out loud. Show it out loud. If you are a domain expert, say it. When we see this, we're like, oh, we value the information coming out of her mouth much more than we would value the information coming out of some random stranger. So that's why you need to call attention to your domain experience. And of course, not everyone is a domain expert, and that's okay. And that kind of brings us to one of my favorite ways to establish a USP, which is through effort. And this is by showing the work that went into the video. And this works because it leverages something called input bias, which is the idea that the more effort is put into something, whether it's time or money or energy, the more we value it. So as an example, let's say you pay $50 for a bottle of wine. You're going to like that bottle of wine much more than if you paid $20 for that exact same bottle of wine, just because you paid more money for it. And it's this just really funky things that we as humans do, but then we can use this really funky thing in our intros to get people to care. So let's take a look at an example. This is the video from Mr. Who's the Boss. And in his intro, he says, I'm about to spend $10,000 buying the craziest tech on the internet. Okay, so we know that this video costs a lot of money to make, and therefore we perceive it as being more worth watching. Now, raise your hand if you have $10,000 to work in a video. Okay, hey, okay, some, nice. Most of us do not have $10,000 to burn in a video, and that's okay. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars on a video in order to leverage input bias. All you need to do is just show how much effort went into the video. Maybe it's by mentioning how many books you read to research for the thing that you're doing. Or maybe it's just by, showing gorgeous cinematic shots that took you a long time to achieve, or showing a visual that took you a long time to make. Just by showing the effort that went into the video, viewers will perceive it as being worth more. And that's how you can establish your USP. And then finally, the last one we have is proof, because we live in this funky world now where it's more common than ever for people to make bold claims about things and then never actually have the payoff in the video to support those bold claims. So with proof, all you have to do to establish your USP is just prove that you actually did the thing that you claim to do. And this is a question that I get sometimes from creators thinking about their intros, because they're like, well, if I show the results in the intro, won't that spoil the payoff? If they're here and that payoff is creating tension, shouldn't I wait till the payoff until the very end? But now trust is more important than making that payoff happen. There's a concept that Mark Rober likes to talk about called Jenga storytelling, which is whenever you go to play a game of Jenga, you already know what the ending is going to be. You're going to play and the tower is going to fall. But even though you already know what the ending is going to be, you're still going to play because it's more about, okay, how do we get to the point where the tower is going to fall? So if you tease the result, the proof, the payoff early in the intro, people will still watch. And let's take a look at an example. This one's from Mike Shake. So he made a video about a slingshot that shouldn't be legal. In his thumbnail, he had a picture of a giant slingshot. And this is a freeze frame from his intro, and he says it can punch through concrete blocks. And he shows an actual slingshot punching something through a concrete block. Therefore, we as viewers are like, okay, we're actually going to get something dangerous. It's not just some guy saying something. We want to continue watching because we trust that we're going to get a payoff at the end that is good enough to be worth investing our time. So that's USP. Now, armed with that knowledge, we got expertise, we got effort, which is input bias, and we got proof. Now let's rewatch Mark's full intro, and I want you guys to tell me which out of these three Mark used to establish his unique service proposition in his intro.
This is me on top of a speeding train, and this is me in a hot air balloon to answer some of the most debated science questions on the internet. For example, my hot air balloon pilot here says he can land me anywhere I want, and yet there's nothing here that resembles a steering wheel, which begs the question, how do you actually steer these things?
So we steer.
And now I'm on top of the train to learn once and for all, why do you land in the same spot as you jump inside the train, but not? You jump on top of the train, but I'm not stopping there. Because today we're going to investigate 5 more physics and engineering puzzles using simple demonstrations as we go. Because our goal by the end of this video is not for you just to know the right answers, but more importantly for you to understand why they're the right answers.
Okay, who can tell me which one of these things did he use for USP? For hands, yes. Effort, hand. Proof. Yeah, it was a trick question. It wasn't just one. Oh, yeah, facts up there too? And expertise. Okay, yeah, it was a trick question, right? He didn't just use one, he used all 3. And that is one of the reasons why Mark Rober's videos are very difficult to replace. They're very difficult to imitate. Because he checks these 3 boxes. I would say this video probably more so the second 2 ones, but also the first. He is a NASA scientist. He does, he is very good at what he does. And that's why his videos are very difficult to imitate. So when you think about your intros, really think about from the very beginning, what is your USP? And how can you put that into your video? So at this point, we've nailed our title and thumbnail first, because title and thumbnails are part of intros, and I will die on this hill. We've established our first 5 seconds, and we've made the rest of our intro. We have enough expectations, we have provided context, we've opened one or more curiosity gaps, we've established our USP. But we have all of these ingredients, but the way we put them together is what takes an intro from just okay to truly killer. Which brings us to the 4th and final step in a 4-step system to make a killer intro, which is the final construction, which I know is vague, but we're going to get into it. And when it comes to final construction, the most important thing to keep in mind is that you can't just tell the viewers what's going on, you need to show it happening. And everyone says, oh, yeah, like show, don't tell. But there's a reason why, which is autoplay. So with the adoption of YouTube's autoplay feature, it is more common now than ever for someone to watch the entire intro without hearing it. They just hover over and it just plays. Sometimes they even watch the entire intro without seeing the thumbnail, because they just scroll on mobile and it autoplays as soon as it's on their screen. And if you just put all of your focus on your script without thinking about the visuals, well, I'll have you see for yourself. This is a very old video from Ali Doll. Let's take a look at this intro, shall we? Without sound, pretending that this is autoplayed. Yeah, right? Without this title, we have no idea what's going on in this video. Even with the title, we're not convinced that he's actually talking about websites. We have no visual confirmation that he is talking about the reason why we want to click on this video. So if I'm a viewer and I'm like hovering, as a lot of viewers do, hovering on different videos, this happens on search too. You hover over the videos to see is this the one I want to click on? Is this the one I want to invest in? if you don't show it happening in your intro, people aren't going to click. They're going to click on something that does show it happening. And because no shade to Ali, let's see what he does now. Let's take a look at one of his more recent intros to see how it's different. Pretty different, right? And I would argue that, I mean, how many of you kind of got what he was saying, even though you didn't hear anything, right? We kind of understand, like, yeah, right? Like, we see books, okay, we're talking about books, we see these different categories happening. He's probably going to be talking about different categories of books that he found interesting. We get all of that without hearing a single word. So, Mark does this too, right? When he tells you, like when in his intro, he's not just sitting in a room telling you, hey, I'm going to go on a train, then I'm going to go on a hot air balloon, then we're going to do other things. So he shows it happening. So even if you don't hear anything, you still know what you're going to get. And there's this framework that I like to think about, which is what is your ears and eyes? But you should think about this when you go to planning your own intros. It can be helpful to go through your script and write down like what visuals can support what you're saying. So think about what are the viewers hearing with their ears, that's your script, then what are they seeing with their eyes? And you can even test it. If you play your intro with no sound, is there enough going on so that they know that they're going to get what they clicked for? And once you write these things down, you can even put it all into a shot list, and this kind of helps you capture the right footage to help you get the right visuals to create a hooky intro right from the very beginning. So I actually do this before I film, and I do this every single time before I film. So I know that I have everything I need to show and not tell in my intro. As you go through this as well, just be very intentional about what expectations you're setting for the rest of the intro. Because on YouTube, many viewers use the intro as the proxy by which to determine whether or not it's worth investing their time watching the rest of the video. Which is a fancy way of saying people judge you and judge you hard based off of your intro. They judge the entire watchability of your video based off of that. So let's say you have this like epic cinematic montage later on the video, or some high quality motion graphics, or a joke, or anything else that you associate with a high quality video. If that comes later on in the video, but it's not signaled, it's not teased in the very beginning, then viewers won't know that it's there. They'll be like, this intro is kind of bland, therefore the rest of the video is probably bland. It's not worth investing my time watching. So you really just want to give your viewers that taste of quality from the very, very beginning. Really consider what impression you want to give off. So when it comes to this, there are kind of like two ways that you can play with these impressions. There's pacing and there's feeling. And when it comes to pacing, you can think about if you have a slower cut intro, a slower paced intro, people are going to assume the rest of your video is pretty slow. If you have kind of somber, dark, intense music in your intro, people are going to assume that that's the tone of the rest of your intro. So really start to think about how do you want your viewers to remember your video? Think about that before you go to write your intro, and then think about, okay, how can we signal the same feeling, the same impression, the same tone, the same pace in your intro itself? And ultimately, it's just worth always remembering that on YouTube, watch time isn't expected, it's earned. So if you think, oh, my viewers are going to get it, they're going to care as long as they keep watching and see this, chances are they're not going to see it. So you have to be very intentional about getting that across in your intro. And I know it is a lot of work to think about for just a 20 to 40 second segment of a video, I get it. And you are right, it is. But it's also worth it. And the more you think about the more you think about intros systematically, the more you go through this process, the better you're going to get out of it. Ultimately, this is the picture you want to take. Remember this, right? Make your title and thumbnail first, then use your first 5 seconds to match the expectations set by that. Use the rest of your intro to create context, curiosity gaps, establish USP, and front load your quality while you show, don't tell. How much time do we got left? Some 10 minutes, great. We have enough time to write an intro together. Woo! So, this is my friend Liz. And Liz is making a video. She's making a video titled, I read every book about becoming a millionaire. Here's what I learned. This is a mock of a first thumbnail. This is a real video. And Liz needs some help with her intro. So I figure we're gonna help her using the 4-step system. And let's walk through it. First, let's think about the plot promise. What promise does this set? What do we think this video is going to be about? What she learned?
About millionaires.
What? She read every book. So yeah, the promise that she read every book, yeah? The promise is to learn how to become a millionaire, right? Like, yeah, I think all of these things contribute to the plot promise. Well, no, I had, oh, don't look at that, that's cheating. Based off of these promises, what do we think a first sentence could be that helps deliver on this promise? This is how to become a millionaire. I like that, yeah? Yes, okay, I like that as well, yeah? This is what the books say about becoming a millionaire. I think all of, yeah, we were right there, last one. I like that, yeah, I read 50, but that's also signaling a little bit of the USP there too, a little bit of info bias. I like all of these things. They're all great. The one that I ended up going with is, this is every book I could find on becoming a millionaire. And in my head, I'm envisioning her with like a giant stack of books or surrounded by books and showing that on screen. So we have our first sentence, but honestly, any other of the first sentences that you guys said, those are great. I like those as well. After that, we have the rest of the intro, right? We've got the first 5 seconds, let's go into the rest of it. And right, we need to establish the context, we need to establish the curiosity gaps, we need to establish the USPs. So let's start with context. I would argue that we kind of already have the what with the first sentence, like, this is every book I could find on becoming a millionaire. You already see it. I don't think you need to establish what every title is. I think that's like verging on too much context in the beginning, but we still need a why. So what are some whys that we could add in there to make the viewer care? Like, why would you do this? Yeah. Credit card debt, yeah, right? Like, I'm doing this because I need to get out of credit card debt. I like it, it makes it real. Yeah, right there.
Because I'm gonna go to Vegas.
Because student loans, you wanna go to Vegas? How over here?
You could start the intro with the why by saying, I want to become a millionaire.
I want to become a millionaire.
I went around to my entire city and found every book about becoming one. Here's why I love it.
I like it because the saying I want to become a millionaire, it is close enough, right? That title is close enough to becoming a millionaire. I want to become a millionaire, becoming a millionaire. It fits. I like that. Okay, so we have some ideas for context. I like them all. We have some very real whys. Now, what about curiosity gaps? This one is a little bit trickier, but I believe in you. Yeah. What? Do any of the books contradict each other? Yeah, so we can like establish, I'm going to see if they contradict each other, or and what they all said was very different, right? It's like, how are they different? Yeah.
What do they all have in common?
What did all? Yeah, maybe, and they all said the same thing. Now, okay, what was the same thing that all of them said? What did they care?
And I can't believe I learned cut.
Yes, right? I can't believe. Okay, what the heck did she learn? I want to know. We'll do last one over here.
Which one of these authors are already millionaires?
Oh, that's cool too. Yeah, and I read every book, and only one of them was an actual millionaire. That could be interesting too. Right? That's good to know. It's good to know. Let's move on to the USP. Okay, so out of expertise, effort, time, money, energy, or proof, what kind of USP could she add to this to make it special? I want to see someone I may have not called on yet. Yeah, over there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, and then which one is that? Yeah. It's proof, and it's also some info bias as well with the time, right? With the time spent behind him. Okay, that's okay. With the red hair?
If she would put effort, she would say I spent this many hours reading all these books.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I like that. Yeah, this many hours, I'm like 156 hours. Okay, you're gonna get that much. You remember? Yeah. Expertise how? Okay, yeah, so, I mean, I guess the way that I would say expertise is like, I read all those books, and now I'm a millionaire, right? Like, it's okay, like, she knows what she's talking about, she followed it. Let's go over here.
You could reference money, you could make the title, I spent X amount of money on books about becoming a millionaire.
Oh, yeah, okay, so it's like, I spent all of this, let's see, like, I like that too, it's like, I spent, let's say, $500 on all these books, let's see if I can recoup my investment, you know, at a given time. That adds a little bit of a challenge to it as well. I like all of these. A lot of great ideas here. A lot of great ideas here. And as you can see, it's like you can mix and match these ideas. A lot of these work with each other. And that's a process that I would recommend going through an intro. Start off, title and thumbnail. You all promised me you would start with the title and thumbnail. Start with that, then think like we did. Okay, what is the expectation set? I would even like take that, show it to a friend of yours, say, what do you think this video is going to be about? Ask them. Don't tell them anything about it. See what their expectations are. And make sure to either change the title and thumbnail, that's not what your video is about, or make sure you pay that off in your first 5 seconds. Afterwards, think, just like we did, brainstorm. What is all the context I might want to, like, what is all the context I want to share? And then pare it down. What is all the context I need to share? Think about what are all the different curiosity gaps I could think about, and what are all the ways I could establish USP. And as you can see from this conversation, this brainstorming too, this is valuable to do at even the ideation stage, because a lot of these ideas will dramatically affect how the video turns out, what the plot of the video is. And come with a really hooky intro. If it's hooky enough, you can just use that as the like the outline for the video that you end up writing. In the last 3 minutes that we have, maybe, I'll show you the one that I came up with. But I like, honestly, a lot of what you guys said, maybe even better. So first, I matched the title and thumbnail. This is every book I could find on Becoming a Millionaire. I matched her like holding it or being surrounded by books. Then I put a little bit of context, which is, and because I'm tired of not being a millionaire, I decided to read them all. You don't need a really deep why. You can because I want to get out of my student loans, but it's also okay to just keep if you don't have a deep why, you don't have to force it. You can keep it light and cheeky. That also makes it like the tone of the rest of the video is probably going to also be light and cheeky. We have curiosity gaps. Before I did that, there's the green there too. The end of that also helps match our expectations. We promised we're going to read them, and you confirmed, and I read them all. We have curiosity gaps. So the first one that I said was, but can reading a book actually make you rich? That's, I think, a question that a lot of people have when they think about all these like self-help books, right? Like, does it actually work, right? After that, I have USP. I think it would be really interesting if instead of just reading these books, she tested out all the strategies. Like I said, to find out, I tested every book's top money-making strategies over the last 30 days. So we have that bit of that input bias with the time. We also have that effort, right? Like she's putting more effort in than most people do over a time horizon that most people will not commit to. And the results were surprising. She said surprising. I know someone else was like, oh, like it was surprising. I said that too. Yeah, the results were surprising. A little bit more curiosity gap. And I ended it with the beefiest curiosity gap of them all, which is, so in this video, I'm breaking down which books were legit, which ones were a scam, what strategy nearly every book recommended, what single tip led me to make the most money I ever had in a single week. So we have lots of curiosity gaps, a lot of ones that you guys said too, which I love. And that very last one, we tie it with a core fundamental desire of humans, which is money, and that makes that curiosity gap even stronger. So that's how you make a killer YouTube incredible. On your intros, come to this. It's first come, first serve. I will sit down with you. I will look at your intros. So I'll give you feedback. It's tomorrow at 2 p.m. I don't know what room it is, but it's in the schedule. Thank you guys so much.
Normally, like, when I go to conferences, the sessions are just like very generic advice.
Yeah.
This one,
This is definitely more detailed.
every
So today is the day 2 of VidCon. And that wraps day 2 of VidCon. And today is day 3, the final day of VidCon 2025. And that concludes VidCon 2025. It was a lot of fun.
But I tried to do that on the phone, but
Hello, Sultan.
In New Jersey.
So far. Yeah, thanks for coming so far. East Coast, West Coast.
You know, like, one.
Oh, I do know about the UN. I will be honest. We won't see her in Teapot 19, but we might hear about her in Teapot 19. She's doing it. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Susan.
Let's start with the backpack with pencil and match right there. Okay.
See, everyone who has the clear backpack, you are on your game. That is a new. Oh my god.
That's true. My favorite backpack. Well, actually, no, Liam's my favorite backpack.
Okay, hi, my name's Anthony. I was up for 2022. I don't know if you remember me, but I have sort of like two mini questions. One, will Lollipop ever get her scribbles back? And two, will there ever be a cake push?
Well, yeah, she just lost the scribble, but she did enjoy it for years, so, you know, maybe she'll draw it back on soon enough. Yeah.
As far as the cake plush, well, I will say there is another food-related plush that's about to come out soon. Some people are going to see the loose images of it.
I see someone with a tree cosplay head. I saw that earlier. I was impressed. Do you have a question? I always love when cosplay has like 3D kind of shapes. You know, you have to build it out of cardboard or 3D print it. I think that's like the pinnacle of art. You know, trying to make it conform to your body somehow.
Do people want a tree plush? Yeah. Well, it sounds like we should.
I feel like shipping would be kind of expensive, but if you're willing to pay it, then jump in on the tree plush.
Thank you for the question.
You missed him, but you got him, but you missed the tree, me.
Let's go with this iPad drawing right here. Yeah. Did you have a question? No. Yeah. I've been watching like some digital circus. I know a new one came out. I haven't seen the new one yet, so yeah, I don't know about that one. Yeah.
Oh, I want to give a shout out to Murder Drones. If anyone's seen that.
I also want to give a shout out to Object Invasion.
You voiced a voice on that show.
Yes, a Jellybean.
Jellybean's right here. Well, a few years ago, I had a Aspen Hotel stint, so I also watched that.
Thank you for the question. Let's go with the pin. Yeah.
Pin shall rise. Pin shall rise. Pin shall rise. I thought there was a pin in there, but it's just evil Leafy. What happens to Dream Island? Oh, well, the next VFDI episode will show. Oh, I guess I don't want to spoil too much, but Dream Island. Okay, I can't. Basically, watch the next episode of VFDIA if you are a Dream Island enthusiast.
Does anyone here want a free blushing? Please be civil. Please be civil.
What's it? Tennis ball? Okay, we only have like 5. Germany? Wait, you came from Germany? Oh wow. The Navy, they're going so far. How long was the flight?
Okay, that's all the blushies, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for making this VidCon the most special time ever for us.
OSC, 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 OSC,
How you doing? Are these free?
Yeah, just get.
Oh, cool. Thank you so much.
My chest hurts. My chest, I scram. She sprayed my lungs
Yeah.
So cool, yeah, totally take my part.
Oh, cool, yeah.
We help content creators with like editing, thumbnail, strategy, anything like that.
Oh, cool.
Are you doing everything on your own right now?
Yeah, I'm using CapCut for editing and also with thumbnails too and everything.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's always like a great place to start. But yeah, we'd love to work with you in the future and like or now, like and
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
basically-
I'll definitely be. Okay, take a post.
Yeah, so these are some of our basic packages, what that looks like. But we can just do thumbnails or we can just do like strategy or long form.
So these are like the bundle packs.
Yeah, those are pretty generic packages that people get onto. But with that, we can tailor something that maybe is a little bit more suitable for your content, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we help creators with hundreds of videos a month or, 4 videos a month. So.
Oh, cool. Thank you so much. I'm Tim, by the way.
I'm Haley. So nice to meet you. Do you have like an email or something we can connect?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd love to.
I'm a business card, but can I?
Yeah, I'll have you write it down.
Okay, yeah.
If you could just write down your name, your @ on YouTube or Instagram, and then just your email would be perfect. So what kind of content do you create?
Mostly gaming content, edit type of content where I'll take like clips and kind of add together, make like one little scene and then higher level content.
I know we've worked with Jarvis J, I think Alexia, Amp Reacts, and Sweepable. Yeah, so I'm definitely anything you have in mind in the gaming world, like we could take care of.
Oh, perfect. Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
For the info and definitely be getting in contact for sure. the most wild stuff. Why can't I do this with it? Funny stuff. Yeah. You're not getting the new one. So that's
Awesome week. Yeah. All right. Thank you for staying. I know this is probably going to be the last talk for most of you, so thank you for sticking around. My name is Sun. I'm going to talk about micro storytelling for social media. So I run an agency in New York called Night Owls. We work mostly with personal brands. I also have a community called Night Owl Nation, where we have creators and entrepreneurs practice storytelling together. There are some of the clients that we work with. We used to mainly work with corporate brands like American Red Cross, Spotify, Columbia University. For the past 7 years or so, we've been working with a lot of personal brands, including Mark Randolph, the co-founder of Netflix, Jay Shetty, Mel Robbins, if you know who they are. So I want to talk about what the heck is storytelling, micro storytelling. It's a word that I made up. But basically, about 4 years ago when I started putting out content, I started to make carousels like this. If you want to just pay attention. I won't read it so you can just read it yourself. Okay, so I started to put out a lot of carousels like these, and I noticed that I got a comment like this. I never thought of it that way. So at first I just ignored it because I hear this a lot when I talk to people. But then the next day I got it again, and then again, and then again, and then again. And I kept getting them. I got so many comments like these that I decided to make that my tagline. So if you've ever talked to somebody who said, I never thought of it that way, like this is the favorite phrase I love hearing. Because when somebody says, I never thought of it that way, it means you didn't actually tell them something brand new. You told them something they already knew, they already thought about, but they just never thought of it that way. Meaning, you gave them a different perspective on something they already knew. And what I found is that you can't change people's mind by just giving them new information. In fact, when you actually give them a fact, they double down on their bad idea. So the best way to get people to change their mind is actually to get them to say, I never thought of it that way. And eventually, that plants a seed in their mind where they change their own mind. Now, that was a carousel, but this micro storytelling works on anything. And if you want to see all of the content that I'm going to be showing you today, you can just go to my Instagram, and they're all in there. Just go to sun.yi. Okay, so like I said, you can use micro storytelling anywhere. I I first started using them in sales. I noticed that when I use them in sales, I tend to close a lot. I started using them in carousels, sometimes in videos. I also use them in speaking, so hopefully you guys have a lot of moments today where you say, I never thought of it that way. I use them on websites that we build for our clients, emails, as well as ads. I did it so much that it just became second nature to me. And sometimes I'll be on my podcast talking, and I'll hear people say it. This is a client of mine who I was on a podcast with, and in the middle of the talk, she caught herself saying, I never thought of it that way.
When you're on Instagram flipping through, this is just one person out of the 1,000 people that you're following. It's just a blip. YouTube is a little bit better because you're watching these 5-10 minute videos. But on podcast, you're investing an hour, 2 hours to listen to this guy because you're a true fan. That means whatever he says to buy, you're gonna probably buy.
That's true. Oh my gosh, I never thought about it that way.
You can say it. When you start learning micro storytelling and you start doing this in your own life, like you'll get to a point where you'll just constantly hear people say, I never thought of it that way. Now, you've all been gypped because I suck at storytelling. And I'm about to teach you storytelling. Well, that's because this isn't actually, in my opinion, it's not storytelling. Because I found that, when you watch a movie, right? Sometimes you see a character die, and it doesn't bother you at all. It's like, oh, whatever. And then sometimes you see a character die, and you just, you cry your eyes out. Why is that? Because in order to tell an effective story, you need time to build the character. You need character development. And you can't always do that on Instagram or social media. So when I first started posting content, that's why I started creating those carousels. And the thing is, I'm not a very creative person, which is funny because I run a creative agency and I teach storytelling. But when I was young, my dad would always tell me, son, you're so good at copying things. So I would do a drawing from a photo and make it look identical to the photo. But I just couldn't come up with anything on my own. And whenever I talk to an artist or creative person, and I say okay, how did you come up with that song? Or how did you come up with that story? Or how did you come up with this design? They'll usually tell me oh, it just came out of me. I don't know, it just came out of me. And I'm nothing ever just comes out of me. When I go to these events and people are oh, just go with the flow and dance. I'm what should I do? How should I move my arm, right? Or if somebody says, just journal, just write whatever comes to your mind, and I'm nothing comes to my mind. I've always been good at math and science. I have a very logical kind of engineering mind. So I've never thought of myself as a creative person. When I actually started designing, what I did was I would take a design that I like, take a screenshot, and I would copy it pixel by pixel, identical. And that's how I learned design. And when I kept making designs like this, one of the things I noticed is, if I have a font size, certain size font size, or proportion-wise, if I have this size versus this size font, or if I'm using this color combination, or this much proportion in terms of spacing. Depending on that, I noticed that it gives off certain feelings. Maybe something will look more corporate, something will look more fun. And I just reverse engineered it. So after copying designs a lot, I just started noticing patterns. So I started doing the same thing with stories. There's a difference between storytelling for art and storytelling for marketing. So when you read the great literatures, or when you watch great stories, most great stories for art, there is no agenda. It's not okay, this is the point we're gonna prove, and the storyteller, writes the story based on that, right? That would be considered propaganda. What great story in terms of art is they just write the story of a character as it would actually happen. And that's why when you look at great stories, the hero is not always perfect, right? The hero has some flaws. The villain's never just pure evil. There's gray area in all of these. But the thing is, when you do storytelling for art, There is an agenda. The agenda is I'm trying to sell you something. I'm trying to sell you an idea. I'm just trying to sell you a product or something like that. So you actually have to start at the end and reverse engineer the story. And that's kind of what I did because I have an engineering mind. So I looked at all of the carousels that I made, I looked at all the content that I created, and I started to reverse engineer and I started noticing some patterns. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. So there's 3 patterns that I saw mainly. Pattern number 1, I call this the myth-truth sandwich. It's kind of like the compliment sandwich where you do, you give a criticism but sandwich in between 2 compliments. But in this case, what you do is you take an example and you sandwich it between myth and truth. So you give some sort of a myth that people believe in, and you give them a contradicting example. So a myth that most people believe in, and an example that proves that myth wrong. Now this myth has to be something they agree with. So this example has to be something they agree with. If they don't agree with the example, then this doesn't work. And then you end it with the truth. Here's a prompt that you can use, a framework you can use. So if you're writing one of this myth-truth sandwich, you can try to fill in the blank. Most people believe blank, but you have noticed how blank? The truth is blank. You'll notice that a lot of comedians use this. This type of, hey, comedians always go, hey, you ever notice how people in the subway always do this? And people are like, oh, yeah, that's so true. I never thought of it that way, right? So that's where this comes from. Now, how do you find examples? A great example can turn cliche into aha moments. So if you look at all of the content that I put out, I'm not saying anything new. Every advice I give, every point that I'm making are cliches that you already know. But the different thing that I'm doing is I'm giving a different example that you've never thought of. So here's an example. In the 50s, car ads looked like this. People wanted big American muscle cars. Volkswagen had a problem. They sold small, simple German cars. So instead of trying to be like everyone else, they embraced their difference. It was one of the most iconic ads in history. Stop trying to be the next blank. Be the first you. So this is probably the most cliche advice you hear online right now. Be yourself. Be authentic, right? So you can take such a cliche advice and just by giving a good example, you can make people say, I never thought of it that way. Okay, here's another one. Number 1 mistake on Instagram, right? Number 1 writing mistake on Instagram. So this is another cliche advice. Like people always say, make your content short, write shorter. But, one day I came across this article where they say, if you take a word, as long as you keep the first letter and the last letter the same, you can mix around the letters in between, and people will be able to recognize the word. So I used that as an example to demonstrate this cliche advice. So as long as you have a good example, it could be the most cliche advice, and you can still break a myth. Next, relatable analogies make the best example. So when I talk to clients, because I'm in marketing, I noticed that there's so many similarities between like business, marketing, and dating. So I use dating as an analogy a lot. So here's an example. Most people think more options will make clients happier. But do you notice how people were happier in relationships? when there were less options to choose from. With more options to choose from, they're less happier than ever. It's because of paradox of choice. More matches you have, more they feel they can find a better match. Want your clients to be more satisfied? Give them less options. So before I said, like, you want to give an example that people are going to agree with, and in order to do that, you're going to have to find a common analogy that most people understand. And like, for example, dating is a good one. Okay, next. We act according to a myth that we believe subconsciously. So a lot of us believe in a myth that we don't even know. We just act a certain way, and we don't know that it's because we believe in a myth. So I'll give you an example.
Oh my God, I love your skirt. Where did you get it?
It was my mom's in the 80s.
Vintage. So adorable.
Thanks.
That is the ugliest effing skirt I've ever seen.
When we talk about someone when they're not in the room or gossiping, we think we're forming some sort of bond because we're letting them into the circle. But for the person that's listening, subconsciously it's an immediate red flag because they're going, if you're talking about someone behind their back to me, you could be doing the same thing to me.
Okay. So I noticed that I do this a lot. Like, in order for me to bond with somebody, like I'll talk about somebody that's not in the room, like gossiping, right? And I didn't even know that I was doing this, but I know subconsciously what I was doing was like, I want to make a bond with this person. And the best way to, create a bond is to share a secret or something like that, right? Oh, something that only we know, that nobody else knows. And this is a myth that I believed in subconsciously. But what I didn't know is when somebody's doing that to me, I'm like, oh, what are you saying about me behind my back, right? So this is how I came up with this concept. Okay, the second pattern I noticed in all my stories is it's called the real truth. So before I told you it's myth, contradicting example, and the truth, right? But when I kept digging in a little deeper, what I noticed is that it's actually myth, it's actually truth, a different truth, and the real truth. So even myth is actually a truth. So sometimes a myth is a truth under different contexts. So, when I say a myth, it's not actually a myth, but it's true under these certain circumstances, and it's not true under these circumstances. So for example, here's a good one. People say 2 heads are better than 1, right? Now people also say you can't have too many cooks in the kitchen. Now these are 2 contradicting truths. They contradict each other. But actually, that doesn't mean it's the opposite. There's a real truth somewhere in between, which means when it comes to teamwork, 2 heads are better than 1. But when it comes to leading this team, you don't want to have too many directions that'll confuse everybody, right? Something like that. So here's an example of that. Motivational speakers say never give up. But some people just don't know when to quit. Like staying in a failing business when they're barely surviving, or staying in a failing marriage just because of their kids. Here's the truth about giving up. Sometimes you have to fold a hand. So you can survive to play another hand. Letting go of the hand to win the game is not the same as giving up. And that's the real truth. Okay, here's another example.
Be authentic.
So here I want to talk about authenticity. A lot of people talk about authenticity, but what I noticed is that there's 2 different contexts here. There's authenticity and there's privacy. And a lot of people seem to confuse these 2.
You can be authentic and private at the same time. You can be public and still be fake as fuck. Don't confuse authenticity
with sharing everything or being public or private, right? Like Gary Vee is a good example of that. We know nothing about his personal life.
Nothing.
Yeah.
I love that so much because I feel like the biggest misconception around showing up online is like, oh, now I have to let people into my life. Now I have to share my family. I have to turn the camera and cry. Right.
Okay, next, about the real truth. Sometimes myth is just an overcorrection of the truth. So I think, maybe back in the 80s, maybe like in the old days, nobody used to say like, follow your passion, right? People would just say like, work hard, do what's gonna, you go to school. Okay, here's a good one. I just thought of it. Nobody used to say school is a waste of time. Like that school is a scam, university is a scam. Now the popular narrative has switched and say, oh, you don't have to, like, you don't, look at Steve Jobs or whatever. You don't have to go to university to succeed. Now, that's one of those things that's overcorrected. So if I say, schools are a waste of time, like back in the 80s, people would be like, you're crazy. Now if I say it, people will agree, right? So that thing, that it has overcorrected, that trend, right? So here's an example of overcorrecting. So now, because everybody says follow your passion, so I say don't follow your passion, do this instead. Do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. This is a bullshit advice. I started a design agency because I love design. But I spent very little time designing, and I spent a lot of time doing shit like pitching new business, meeting deadlines, stroking people's ego, trying to steal clients, dealing with people trying to steal clients, chasing people down to get invoices paid, worrying about cash flow to meet payroll every 2 weeks, dealing with landlords. Building a business around what you love is very different from doing what you love. And that's the real truth. Here's a better advice. You can't always do what you love, but you can choose to love everything you do. Okay, the easiest to find the real truth is to put yourself in someone else's shoes. So most of the aha moments, or I never thought of it that way moments that I've had, was when I was wearing somebody else's shoes, where I'm acting a certain way, and then later in the future I realized that somebody else is doing that to me, or I was doing that to someone else, something like that, right? So here's an example. The ones that ask for discounts are usually the worst entrepreneurs. The ones that succeed are ironically the ones that never ask for discounts. They understand what I learned over the years, which is if I'm hiring somebody and I'm starting that relationship by asking him for a discount, I'm basically making a subconscious statement to you that you're not worth it. Therefore, I want a discount. Is that a good relationship to start off? Is that person gonna do the best work possible for me? No. I actually wanna overpay them so that they're like, oh wow, son really values me, therefore I wanna do a really good job for him. Yeah, so this is an example of how when I used to freelance and people would always like give discounts, but once one client just overpaid me, I wanted to go like over and beyond and do better work with them, right? Mm-hmm. So when I started my own agency, I realized that, so I put myself in my employees' shoes and I started doing the same thing, right? Here's another example. So I have a lot of clients who wants to start podcasts. They come to me and say, son, I love to talk, so I should start a podcast, right? So I made this post: if you love to talk, do not start a podcast. If you listen to the top 10 podcasts, you'll notice that host talks 5% of the time, and the guest talks 95% of the time. Interview podcast is for people who are good at listening, not talking. There's nothing more annoying than a host that keeps interrupting their guests. So if you love to talk, don't start a podcast with guests. Do one of these instead. A solo podcast, conversational podcast with the co-host, or YouTube channel. So if you want to see some of this myth, truth, and the real truth, you can go to this URL, sunE.co/examples. I put together like a group Google Doc of some examples So you can try to see them and try to create some of your own. Okay, the third pattern I noticed is that on a lot of these carousels or even my videos, I was telling stories kind of like a meme. Like everybody's seen memes before, and it's like memes are amazing because you just literally look at this one picture and it just says so much, right? Even in the emotional level, right? Something like this. The word says one thing, the picture says something else, and they both don't mean a lot by themselves. But when you put them together, it tells the whole story, right? With all the little nuances, right? So when you use an image when you do storytelling, or you can also, this also works in videos when you use B-rolls in videos, you can actually say a lot using B-rolls and images, and using less words, actually. So they say picture's worth 1,000 words. So you don't waste those images, don't waste those pictures. Because what I see a lot of people doing is they use an image to support a story that basically is saying the same thing as the story. Or B-roll that says the same thing, right? So for example, let's say this is the message I want to say. This is the words. Telling a story using pictures. Most people will then go to like Google Images or like some stock image site and find a picture like this. Oh yeah, picture, right? But this is a waste of a picture because it's saying the same thing that the words are saying, right? Same thing with this. Oh, it's a story, so I'll use a book. Well, it's also not adding anything to the words. What you want to do is something like this, where it says a lot more. Telling a story using pictures that will have your audience on the edge of their seats. And so the picture tells 1,000 words without having to say it, right? Here's a video that I did with some B-rolls.
Watching Survivor, there was one guy, he was trying to make a net that can catch a lot of fish at once. So he was like the creative type. But then there was this other guy who was more orderly. He's like a management type. Every day he would just use his fishing line to catch one fish, puts in the work, and people get to eat because of that. Well, this other guy spent weeks, he wouldn't catch anything. People started getting annoyed at that guy. That's what the creative guy gets usually in society. Until I think in the last week, he caught like 40 at once. From that point on, he started eating really well. You need both because you need the creative type keep at it, risking failure. But then in the meantime, we still need to eat. So we still need that orderly guy to do the daily task. So there's still like cash flow coming in. So if you notice in that B-roll, when I said, like at the end, they caught 40 at once, so they got to eat really well. But the B-roll that I actually used were the guys celebrating, and they were just like, oh, happy and celebrating, right? Because I wanted to add that because I wanted to get that emotion of, the creative guy kind of getting blamed for everything, and all of a sudden at the end being celebrated, right? But I wasn't saying that, so I'm using the B-roll to say that, right? And I also used the Mac and PC from the old Apple commercial. So you can kind of see like one is the creative type and one is the orderly type. Okay, here's another example. Quality is more important than quality. Quality is subjective, quantity isn't. Zero owner focused on quality over quantity. He served sushi to only 10 customers per day. But he didn't become the best by being perfect from day one. He got there by doing the same way every day for 60 years. Quality isn't spending 1,000 hours on one post. It's spending 1 hour each on 1,000 posts. Quality isn't better than quantity. Quality comes from quantity. If you notice, I did the same thing here, right? Like, I didn't have to go into who Jiro Ono is and what he does and all of that. I just had to find one image that'll tell that whole story, so I can keep the copy just short in one sentence. And same thing here, right? Like I just have to find a picture of him with Obama, so to show that he serves quality sushi and that he's an important sushi chef. Okay, finally, don't be clever, be clear. So a
a lot of like creative designers, they do something like this. All your life plans will change, guaranteed. And they'll use a picture of a kite, and they'll explain, you know, and they'll go into a presentation and say, they'll explain, oh, the kite represents freedom and how, you know, you can't control it and it can go any way. If you have to explain your design, if you have to explain your bureau, then it didn't serve its purpose. It's like a comedian having to explain his joke, that it didn't work, right? So you want to do something like this. So even if it's a symbolic image, you want it to be straightforward so that people have no question on what the image is about. Okay, here's something meta, like this is a carousel that I'm going to talk about this concept of using images using images, okay? Designers are not artists. I used to believe designers were artists. I thought I had to express myself through design. I was wrong. Because art is open to interpretation. But design should communicate a clear message. If your design has to be explained, it didn't serve its purpose. So I got that idea. So when you start doing this myth-truth sandwich, what happens is you start to see these contradicting examples everywhere. So one day I was reading this article where this guy in Taiwan posted something on Facebook because he had to pee really bad and went to the bathroom. And he saw two signs, one with the elephant and one with the giraffe. And he didn't know which one was the men's room, so he just took a picture, posted on Facebook, urgently and asking people which one's the men's room, right? So when I read this article, I'm like, this is such a typical designer fail, because I see so many designers do this. It's like, oh, I'm gonna be creative, so I'm not gonna do the typical, you know, men's room and ladies' room design. I'm gonna do an elephant and a giraffe, right? But if that design has to be explained, then it didn't serve its purpose. So to recap, 3 parts. First, myth, truth sandwich. So myth, contradicting example, truth. Second, actually myth and truth are both true, but there's a real truth somewhere in between. And finally, tell stories like a meme. I'll end it with this one, and I'll just, I think we have some time, so we'll do some questions afterwards. You can't change someone's mind. Nobody can change your mind. The only person that can change your mind is you. So what you can do is hope that, you know, make them say, I never thought of it that way, and hope that one day they'll change their own mind. And good content, this is what this type of content does. Good content gives people the answers, it gives information. What a great content does is it gets them to ask questions. So when you make somebody say, I never thought of it that way, they start to ask questions. It's like, oh, that's so true. Why is that? And they start thinking for themselves, and this is what ultimately makes them change their own opinion. Okay, I have an email with 4 steps to writing great content, the type of content that's gonna ask people to ask questions. If you want that, you can just enter your email on this page, and you'll get the email. Okay, let's do, if anybody have any questions, let's do questions. Yeah, just go, if you have questions, just walk up to that mic in the center.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
First off,
Can you turn on the lights a little bit?
Oh yeah. First off, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you for your time.
What's your name?
My name is Vlad.
Vlad?
Yep. And the question is, what do you think most people get wrong about storytelling?
That's such a broad question. I actually think that most people don't know what it means, what storytelling means. Because when I started posting these, people will come to me and say, son, you're such a great storyteller. Can you teach me storytelling? But I've never told any stories. So I think that most people think that like any good content is storytelling, so that's one. Second thing is, I think that people think that a story has to be something extraordinary. But I think actually the best story are the ordinary moments in your life that you can tell in an extraordinary way. So I'll give you a good example. Has everybody here seen Superbad? Yeah. So Superbad is actually the highest grossing high school film of all time. There's been so many like great high school movies like in the 90s, 80s, Clueless, Mean Girls, whatnot. But the reason why Superbad was so popular is because most high school movies is about the prom queen, the prom king, or the high school football, the cheerleader, the high school football captain. But Superbad was actually about two very average kids. These guys weren't like super geeks. They weren't losers, but they weren't also the popular kids. And 90% of us, when we were in high school, we were not the most popular kids, and we were not the biggest losers. We were somewhere in between, right? And those stories are gonna resonate as long as you tell it in a very authentic way. And authentic way usually means, okay, so I guess this is the third part. When people say be authentic and be vulnerable, the best way to do it is to give the specific details. And specific details is very embarrassing. To give you an example, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a yoga teacher, and she said, "Oh, son," I was like, "Hey, can you tell me tell me some story that you're gonna tell on social media?" And she's like, "Son, I feel like an imposter. I feel like everybody thinks I'm this wellness coach, that this yoga teacher, but I feel like an imposter. I feel like I'm not good enough." And she just kept going on and on and on in a very vague way, right? So I just said, "Hey, can you give me an example?" And she took a few seconds and she goes, "Every day after my noon class, I go around the back of my studio and I smoke a cigarette. And I come back, I wash my hands, I brush my teeth, and then I go to lunch with my friends so nobody knows that I'm a yogi who smokes." And I said, that was the best story. That was the most vulnerable part of the story that you left out. So a lot of times, when you make the story specific, it actually makes it more vulnerable. It makes it harder to tell, because now I have a picture in my head, her smoking a cigarette in the back of the yoga studio, right? And that's vulnerable. So, yeah, that's the third part.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great question. What's your name?
I'm Paris, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for being here today. And I was wondering, so I'm a music artist and I'm trying to make more, I guess, content that complements the actual music that I make in order to tell a story. So I was wondering, for the niche of music, do you have any recommendations for how to implement micro storytelling?
So yeah, what you do is what I talked about before in terms of art, right? It's more of an art. So obviously you're already telling stories through your music. So I would say be the most vulnerable and authentic as you can in your music without worrying about don't worry about what messages, what lesson you're teaching. Just focus on being as authentic as possible. And I guess in your content you can use videos, kind of like the examples I showed of using B-rolls, but I think the best way to do it is, I remember Taylor Swift talking about, there was a song, I'm not a Taylor Swift fan, but there was a song where she talks about the people that hurt you the most are your friends or something like that. And she tells a story about how one time she wants to go to the mall and she was calling all of her friends "Hey, you want to go to the mall? You want to go to the mall?" And they were all like, "No, I'm doing homework. I'm going to this thing." So she went to her mom and she said, "Okay, I want to go to the mall." And so her and her mom went to the mall. And all of the friends that she called that were busy was there without her. And to me, so let's say you're that in a lyric, in the music, let's say, because you're not actually going to talk about that whole story, right? in the song. But because the song is more poetic, but when you're telling the story, but let's say the background B-roll is you go into the mall. That, I think that together is kind of it's gonna you know, people will fill in the blanks, right? Something like that.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Don. I'm a 3D printing doctor on social media, so I do 3D printing content, and I show what I can manufacture, etc. Right? I really like your inspirational thing and how you play with the words and create that tension in there, right? How would someone make this with the views only? Like, if I'm not going to use a text, that's where I'm a little bit confused, because I can figure out the myths and truths in my own content, but like, how do you play with it visually in people's minds? Because your style and myself, of course, like different, but like, I'm trying to bridge the gap here in terms of if I don't use any text, but if I use objects, how would I tell this?
So your content is the 3D model of something you're creating?
Model or like manufacturing. It's, for example, you broke your kitchen sink holder, right? And you show like this is broken, and here's how you can fix it by manufacturing things at home. But like,
I actually think that you're already doing it.
Okay.
Because, like, if I were to ask you, like, your audience and your customers, right?
Yeah.
What's a myth that they believe in that stops them from buying from you?
You can't make it. That's probably they are thinking that I cannot make this at home.
Yeah, or
falsifying that.
Yeah, or I don't need a 3D printer.
I never think it. Oh. Okay, you got me. Okay.
So every single piece of your content could be, hey, you're probably telling yourself like, I don't need a 3D printer. Why do I need a 3D printer? I'm not a product designer. Well.
Okay, so basically by showing the problem and showing the solution to the problem, I'm actually doing it.
Exactly.
I can maybe also add a surprising solution that will make them say, I never think of it.
Yeah, I think you're already doing it. Yeah,
Okay.
so you just keep doing it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Megan. I have a YouTube channel, Gladly Sell. I do like daily trinkets and cozy collectibles. If you can't tell, my bag, yeah. So I guess my question, I'm not a writer, but I love to create things. But I do mostly, especially like trying to bridge over to Instagram and build an audience there. But I do a lot of ASMR, but I want to use micro storytelling to kind of describe, like if I'm crocheting like a little bear or making a little charm necklace or whatever, unboxing something I got downstairs like this. I don't write. I've even asked ChatGPT, like, write me a script, and it's always terrible.
I actually think you don't need micro storytelling at all.
No?
Because your art itself is the content.
Yeah, it's just hard to keep people engaged to watch like the whole. It's because it's such an oversaturated niche. So.
What do? You show videos of the making of, like.
Yeah. So even like something like this, I would just be like, and I would open it, unbox it.
Oh, okay. But are those like something you hand make? Or?
This is something I bought, but this is something I would hand make. Sorry, one of my trinkets is like talking, I guess. Like this little bear I crochet, something like that. Or like I would drill these little trinkets and make like a charm, something. But I would like to describe the process without having to speak, because a bunch of I'm an introvert and all my followers are introverts, so like we don't talk really, so it's like scary. But I don't know if you have it, so you don't think?
Yeah, I think actually those are great content.
Not like a lot of words, just like a little, like, I don't know.
What I would do is I would just film yourself making, crocheting that thing from beginning to end, and then just speed it up, like 15 seconds or something like that. Because like those have a reveal, so like you're building tension as like people are gonna be like, oh, what is she making? Oh, it's like okay, like I can kind of see, and then like they're gonna stick around till the end because they want to see what the final result is, right? So for anybody that's like making stuff like with Bethesda, those are actually, I think, great visuals,
Interesting.
If you do want to use micro storytelling, this is the question I would ask. Like, this is for all of you guys. What is the myth that your audience believes, or your customers believe? And what's the myth that they believe that, like, what I tell my clients is, what's the myth that they believe that stops them from buying from you? Right? Like, for example, they're not going to buy a 3D printer because they're like, well, I don't need a 3D printer. Like, that's the myth, right? So, and then,
Okay, I like that.
what is the truth, you know?
Yeah, okay, I like that, because I didn't want, like, you know, people say on my Instagram, like, grow up, or something like that, or once you have kids, you'll never have time for that.
Yeah,
Stuff like that, I guess, are the myths.
Yeah, those are all myths.
Yeah, okay.
Break, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Hello, my name is Clyde, and first I just wanted to say that was a freaking amazing presentation. I really appreciate it, so I just wanted to give it a clap. My question is not about me or my channel. My question is just something I noticed. I love, first of all, your thesis is just getting people to, you're challenging people's beliefs, right? You're getting them to approach problems or things they believe in a new way, and I love that. And I wanted to ask, I noticed in your examples and in your material and your content, there is no humor there. There's no comedy there. Is that deliberate? Is there a reason? What do you think about the role of humor or comedy in this battle of trying to change minds?
If you're funny, I think you should definitely use it. I'm not funny. Now you guys laugh. So I actually, like, when I did my first talk ever was 4 years ago. It was a TEDx talk, and I went to my friend who's a comedian and said, hey, like, can you give me some lines that'll make people laugh or something like that? And he said, don't try. Because even comedians go on stage and, you know, they can't get people to laugh, right? So, but I think what happens is when you're just being yourself, there's like little funny moments in between there. Like, for example, when I was showing the slide with the bathroom, with the two, like, that's when people were laughing, right? I wasn't trying to be funny. But I feel like when you're not trying to be funny, you know, when you're just being yourself, there is going to be a little bit of humor there added. I'm just not really a funny person. But I just want to say this so that if you're not a funny person, it's okay. But if you're funny, definitely use it.
That makes sense, thank you.
Awesome, great question. Hi.
My name is Simran, and along with my fiance, we have a luxury travel couple channel. I just wanted to ask you, how should we keep the cinematography aspect of it, like keeping the quality of the content, but also have a storyline? So how should we bridge that gap?
When you say quality of the content, what do you mean by that?
Like
visual?
Since we do like luxury aspect of it, how should we like not overshare, but also be authentic enough?
Okay, so let's run through like an example. What's like a myth in your industry that your audience believes that you don't 100% agree with?
I would say that you would need a lot of money to experience luxury.
Perfect. So what I would do if I were you is I would just show like B-roll videos of some sort of a luxury vacation or travel, and then in the background, voiceover, tell the story. Hey, you know, most people believe that you need money to travel, but actually, you know, everything here costs how much, or this is you know, whatever the truth is, right? But just do a voiceover, and then you can still keep your visuals very, you know, elegant and beautiful without having to ruin it. Does that make sense?
Yes, makes sense. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, thank you everyone.
Viral and stay relevant after the storm. If you're a content creator here, we have two amazing panelists that you probably want to hear from. One that actually started off in fairgrounds and on TV shows dancing, and then came to digital content platforms like YouTube and Meta. Another who has been playing video games since before it was cool. So I want to introduce our other panelists today. We have Annie Austin and Merrick Hanna, who I'm excited to introduce you to. So this panel is for anyone who wants to understand how to take content and make that moment of virality last, how to go viral in the first place, and then how to keep that relevance without being inauthentic or selling your soul. And as mentioned, we have someone here who actually started going viral and was on, the big screens and TV before digital content, when I think a lot of other content creators do things the other way around. Merrick, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Merrick Hanna. I am a dancer, a visual effects artist. I do skits online. I had my start in reality TV and theater, and now I am a full-time content creator on doing short-form content.
And Baby Austin is someone who's been playing video games since before they were cool. He has gone through different waves of content creation, as well as different waves of his appearance, including the signature hair clips that are part of the look. Austin, can you tell us a little about yourself?
Yes, I make videos about video games, and usually they're sort of educationally focused. So we will look at infrastructure, hydrology. I tell people it's like PBS, but with video games. So
one of the biggest things that I learned the hard way. There you go. That's awesome. One of the things that I learned the hardest way was going viral for the first time. I had a video where I stripped off all of my makeup as a runway model, and the world could see my acne-ridden skin. And it was awful, because as I went viral, everyone could see what I looked like. So I stopped looking work as a model. There goes my income stream. And I didn't know at the time how to build lasting community or how to monetize that. So over the past 15 years, I really had to learn to pivot and innovate in order to keep content fresh and relevant around skincare, to continue educating myself and helping my audience. But I'm very curious to hear from you guys. What was that first moment where you first started posting versus that first moment of virality? Eric, could you tell us the first video you posted versus the first one that got traction?
yeah, so I think the first video I ever posted was just a little dance video I filmed at my elementary school because I was a big fan of dancing YouTubers at the time and I wanted to be like them. And so it was literally called Merrick's First Dance Video, and I think it got 200 views. But the first time I went viral was actually not a video I posted. I was just dancing, I think at my local fair, and somebody recorded me in some dance circle when I was 8, and I wasn't even aware of this. And someone came up to me and said, "You're viral." And sure enough, it had millions of views. I think Snoop Dogg had reposted it. And then this happened 3 more times, just randomly. Once someone recorded me at my local park dancing, and then at a dance battle somewhere, someone recorded me too. So I went viral a couple of times when I was 8, 9 years old.
You must have pretty good moves at 8 to go viral so many times. Eric, amazing. And Austin, how about you? What was the first video that you ever uploaded? And then was that the one that went viral or not?
No, I was a lot older than you were when I first went viral. So I've been really making content publicly since about like 2013. And the first time I had a video that went viral, and sort of over 1 million views, it was like 2017, maybe 2018. And, in the context of the topic of the conversation that we're having, I did not in any way capitalize on that. So if you watch all of my videos from that time, I did this thing. There's this video game called The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, right? And in this game, there are chickens and there are volcanoes. And so I did this thing where I picked up one of the chickens and I sort of walked it all the way to the top of this volcano and I threw it in. That went viral. That's sometimes just what happens. That video got over 1 million views. It was my first time seeing that number on a video, which is very exciting. It feels very important at the time. But if you look at all of the videos leading up to that, it was like 500 views, 1,000 views, 500 views, 1 million views, 400 views, 300 views, 200 views, on and on and on. So I sort of, unlike you, did not capitalize on that moment, at least initially. It was sort of much later, 2.5, 3 years ago, that I sort of understood how you can make content that is actually good and appeals to people who maybe enjoy that thing that went viral, which sometimes it takes a while to learn that,
I think many content creators have the desire to go viral. They care about their craft and their passion and their purpose, and they want to be seen. But when my videos started blowing up, I was terrified. People could see my biggest insecurity. I didn't intend for this to be seen. Austin, let's start with you. Could you tell me what that feeling was when your video first started going viral? What was that emotion?
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit just before we came on here, and like I sort of alluded to, and you probably feel this way, well, you said terrifying, which I also sort of agree with in some sense, but I think the first time you go viral, when you have a piece of content like out of the blue, a bunch of people are watching, it feels really good. Then it just kind of, well, this is my case, depending on what you do, it's just sort of, poof, it's just kind of gone. And that's a very confusing thing. For me, I think there are a lot of risks associated with going viral to some extent. Like you said, there are things that it can make you extremely self-conscious. It can really get you in your own head, and you'll screw everything up, going after that. So it's kind of a dangerous thing. It's a little bit like winning the lottery in some sense. So it's not, I don't necessarily recommend shooting for that, because it could be both creatively and in terms of your mental health, kind of bad, like kind of a rough thing. So you have to be careful. So it's very much playing with fire. I don't know if you guys had that same experience, but that's what I think.
Well, Merrick, you've gone viral multiple times, from when you were on traditional TV to when Snoop Dogg reposted you to some of the content that you posted far after the age of 8. Could you take me through some of those moments and what it felt like when your videos first went viral versus some of those more recent pieces of content?
Yeah, I feel like it's a bit of a unique situation for me, because when I first went viral, I was not on social media. In fact, my parents didn't let me use it. I didn't watch TV. I didn't have a phone. So, I think my experience is not, a common one. I didn't understand it at all. Like, I just, my life didn't change at all. I just kept going to school. I was literally 8. Did you make any money? No. Oh my God. I wasn't even the one who posted the video. Oh, that's right, you did say that. Yeah. I gotta listen. But I'd say it kept happening randomly. And I began understanding it more and more as I got older, especially as I joined social media when I was, I'd say 12, 4 years later. And then the next couple times I went viral, it was a bigger deal for me. And yeah, it was scary. Because suddenly, rather than having 100 people who watched my videos, suddenly I had hundreds of thousands, and yeah, that's a hard number to process. It was scary for me, for sure, and I was like, what do I do now? And to be clear, the first couple times I went viral, I did not capitalize on it. I was very bad at doing that. Well, and this is what's kind of, I don't know if you feel this way, but it seems to me, and as we talk to you, pretty impressive that you went viral so long ago, and the way that you went viral was truly like out of the blue, right? Somebody randomly filming you, but you are still sitting there with 12 years later, doing a thing at VidCon. So like someone, if not you, was looking out for your sustainability. I don't know if you have anything that you can say about that. Like, how did that happen? Because not everybody who goes viral can continue to have a career, in some sense, 12 years later, right? Yeah, I mean, let's be clear, a lot of it was luck. I got lucky quite a few times, and that gave me the opportunity to learn how to, actually grow from it. But I also had very supportive parents who helped me a lot. I went through a lot of phases in my career. The first time I went viral, nothing really much came of it. Then I randomly got on reality TV. I was on America's Got Talent, and that went viral. And honestly, not too much came from that either, right? And I just kept, working at it. I kept trying to improve my craft, and I'd say maybe the 5th time I randomly went viral, I was finally able to kind of seize that and try and make something from it.
Yeah, and Austin, I love that you bring that up, because you're a full-time content creator. You've taken this thing, this education, this video game streaming, and not only you've been able to continue it for over a decade, but you've been able to do this in a way that it's your full-time job. Could you tell me about how that progression happened and that slow and steady growth? What was that experience like for you, and was it intentional or accidental?
For the first 10 years, it was pretty thoughtless. There was not a lot of intention to it at all. And if you correlate how thoughtful I was with the success I was seeing, both lines would go up at the same time. Sort of like the more you think, the more effort you put into things, the better the videos you make. Usually the better they do, at least in the field that I'm working in, which is strictly long-form YouTube. So if you're not trying to do
long-form YouTube, this advice maybe doesn't necessarily apply. I think it's interesting that you bring up, you sort of go, and I don't know, you might have had this experience to some extent as well, it's like, you go viral, and then you do nothing. And then you go viral again, and then you do nothing. And it turns out that each one, it's not a death sentence to go viral and then have it disappear. It doesn't, you didn't miss your chance. And if anything, it's not even inherently that valuable. There are risks, it's scary, it's weird to see, how much people see you. And so I think that's a really good lesson. So I understand if you go viral and Snoop Dogg reposts it, or a bunch of people watch you throw the chicken into the volcano, or whatever it is, and then that disappears, the low that you get from that is not great. But it also kind of doesn't matter long term. Like, you don't have to worry that much. You don't have to chase going viral. If you just consistently do good things, keep people's best interests at heart, make really good videos, try to do something that you believe in, it'll probably work out, like to some extent, within reason. Eventually, I wouldn't stress too much about that viral stuff, and I think what you just said is a great representation of that.
Austin, I love that you bring that up, and the way you describe it reminds me of waves that I've seen in social content, right?
Yes.
You started out with cat videos on a certain platform, and that turned into how to tie a tie. Then we have videos such as story times, people sharing their experiences, to reaction videos and social commentary. And we saw people who had a niche or a topic take that and rebrand it essentially into these different storytelling formats. And like you said, if you go viral, that could be fine, but it's not always sustainable. That's what going viral is. It's a moment in time. But if you have that audience, it doesn't matter if you're getting hundreds or millions of views. You are able to maintain an audience because of that connection. Now, a certain social platform, YouTube, who recently celebrated their 20 years, has a very specific way that they speak about this. It's called hygiene, hub, and hero content. Hygiene, hub, and hero is the way they describe that viral content. So the hero content is at the top, it's getting millions of views, but it's the very top of that triangle. It doesn't happen all the time. That hub content is what you're putting out every single week, every single month. It's something people can rely on. They might not know you by name, but they come back for it. And the hygiene content is the stuff that you're posting every day, the stories, the little behind the scenes that your diehard fans are following you for. I'd love to know your guys' perspective, specifically here as Merrick starting. What is your hub, hero, hygiene content? And is that something that you think about or strategize when posting?
I zoned out for a second.
It's okay.
Hygiene, wait.
I'm so glad you didn't ask me this question.
Great question.
That's a paradigm.
There's content that goes viral, and then there's content that doesn't get the views, but that's where you foster your community. People are coming to you, they're following you, they're clicking the link in your bio. How does the content differ that you're creating constantly for your community versus that actually does go viral?
This is interesting because as a short form creator, I feel like on short form you don't really get a loyal audience the same way that you might.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah,
but you must have some kind of loyal audience.
But
you walk around, take pictures with people, so on and so forth. Right?
It's very, very small. Like if I were to move to a new platform, like my fans wouldn't really follow me. And so
they should.
Yeah, it's an injustice. I'd say, yeah, and it's interesting you say that because when I make content, I don't know if this is the right mindset, but it's the one that I have. I'm always creating for people who have never seen my videos before. So I guess I don't really follow the hygiene, or if that's what that part of it was. I don't really follow that part of it. So I'm not sure I can quite.
But that is a wonderful, basically a case study of how someone maybe hasn't been able yet to tap into that community element. I would actually argue you would beg to differ. I bet you there are people that watch for every single video that would follow you over if you tried. But it may be different intentionality-wise than someone who is strategically going out to do that. Austin, from your perspective, do you create content for those everyday viewers who are coming back all the time versus for those kind of viral hit moments?
The more I thought about it, the more I started to understand that triangle that you described. And no is the short answer, but I do like this idea, and I think everybody to some extent thinks about it, of like, there is content that you know is going to go somewhere, or you hope is going to go somewhere, viral, you might say. And then there's content, there's like this other type of content that's for community building, to make sure that people get to know you and like you, so that your viewers become sticky, so that then if you go to another platform, they'll follow you to that platform. So that's a wonderful and valuable thing. So in some sense, I think within each video, I think about including things that are hero type moments versus, I'm not sure about the hygiene thing, but the hub content. Sort of like I know that these moments are the moments that people will be like, whoa, this is crazy, and you guys gotta see this video, this guy did this thing. And then there's these moments where you try to put a little bit more of yourself into it, a little bit slower, a little more personality, whatever. So there's this kind of tension within each video. It's interesting to hear that you said YouTube said that, Hygiene Hub Hero. And I wonder was that a prescription that they're saying everyone should do this, or were they just saying people do? Do you know? I don't know where this came from.
There are certain social platforms, I know Meta does this, YouTube does this, TikTok, where they have what's called an SPM, a Strategic Partner Manager. And those can really be the lifeblood of creators. But sometimes they give creators advice or insights and help them conceptualize content in different ways to help them have those long-lasting careers. And so Hero Hub hygiene content was one of them.
Kind of like a sustainability framework for people.
Exactly. And a reason to keep posting even when those views are low, because you know those waves, there's a top of the wave and a bottom of the wave. It's not always going to be on the top. But a lot of creators don't recognize that until they've been through a few renditions. And speaking of that, I'd love to know, Merrick, when you first went viral, you didn't plan on it. It was on someone else's account. You didn't even monetize that. The second, third time, then you started to get used to it, and now that it's become your career, you know how to ride that wave, per se. What would you do different, knowing what you know now, if you could go back and do something different with community or monetization?
I'd say if I started out and I practiced making long-form content more, that would have been cool, because I'm not very good at doing that, and I recognize how important the community aspect is. That would have been nice to have, because, there's so many reasons why that's important. Also, I just wish I had created a social media account earlier, because I really missed a lot of those first waves. What else? What was the question again?
If there is something that you would do different, or if you would tell someone who's in your shoes now, hey, I've been there, I've done that, this is what you should capitalize on now.
Yeah. I'd say the first couple times I was on social media and I went viral, I wasn't really sure what the right thing to do was. Like, I wasn't sure if I should just do the same video again and again. I wasn't sure if I should just do other things and hope that people followed. What I now know is you should not just abandon the viral video that you do, but you also shouldn't just copy it over and over again. Like, I've seen so many people have their 15 minutes of fame and kind of screw it up. I wish I had known that the best thing to do is to keep making related content, and then, not the exact same thing, but like put a twist on it. And also, don't exclusively make that, because then you kind of become locked into this one thing and it's hard to grow out of it. It's a balance.
Right, and that's not, I just had two things. That's just how to, I'm sure as all three of us know, that's how to be successful. Make a lot of content, try a lot of things, but understand whatever you made that people liked, if you stop doing that, they're not going to be happy, which makes perfect sense. So you have to find this way of like, if people are really attached to something and it goes viral, and this is interesting in your context, because if it's like a dance, that's like such a specific thing. But you have to find a way of going like, what do people like about that? And how can I still have the thing that they like without just repeating the exact same thing over and over again and sort of getting stuck in that thing? Really quickly, I'm curious, do you feel like you've been doing this for 12 years? Because I just realized we've been doing it for the same amount of time, but I started when I was 19, so I'm 33 now. Do you feel like it's like, oh, I'm an old guy who's really experienced? Or do you feel like, I'm serious, do you feel like I'm just getting started? Because right now, I didn't start getting good at long form until I was 30, right? That's 10 years from now for you. So do you have anxiety about getting started on something, or do you feel like I'm chilling, I'm like good at this now?
I certainly don't feel like I've been doing it for 12 years, because I sort of haven't. I didn't really start social media as a job until just 5 years ago. Because, being in the traditional entertainment space, doing, TV shows, acting, being in reality TV is just so different that it certainly doesn't feel like that. And there's just something about doing, are you worried about?
Well, you kind of mentioned long form, and I kind of talked to you about this a little bit. Is do you have an anxiety to create stickier content, long form content? At some point, are you like, I better do that, or else? Or are you like, this is working, I've been doing it for a long time, it's what it is?
I wouldn't say I have anxiety about it, because I know that if I really worked hard at it, I could, and I do plan to in the future. But no, for now, I'm pretty happy with short form. It's working for me, and I think it will for at least a couple more years. I'm still in college, so it's not like the end of the world if social media goes away. So no, I wouldn't say I have anxiety about it. In fact, I'm kind of honestly looking forward to it.
Good. Can I ask you a question really quick?
Absolutely.
When you make content, do you think about, because what you do, sort of very loosely, health and wellness focused, you use this aesthetician, what's the word? Is that it?
Aesthetics.
Medical aesthetics. You're doing content that's very explicitly service content, right? You're helping people with a thing. And I feel like that would be complicated to even think of making viral content. Do you think of that ahead of time, or are you purely thinking, I have a thing that's helpful, let me tell people about it?
Excellent question, Austin, and I want to use this to flip on you as well. But for me, it's more of going viral is an indicator that I've provided value. If something has gone viral, is it inspirational? Is it educational? Is it so interesting you can't tear your eyes away from it, you have to send it to a friend? Is it so intriguing that I've watched this video about video games and now I see geography in a different way? That is providing some sort of a service. So virality is a measure of that value that's being provided. I don't necessarily go out to attempt something to go viral. Of course, it's great if it does, and of course, if I believe in my message, I want the most amount of people to see it. But sometimes those videos will pop off when it's least expected. And Austin, the same goes to you. As someone who's really focused on long form, but you've dabbled in short form, you've gone to almost every single platform. Do you go in without intentionality?
No, and you shouldn't. I think this kind of what all three of us have said to some extent is the best way to do things is to do good things for a long time and just keep doing it. You don't want to be thinking and hinging your own sense of well-being and your success on the virality of a single piece of content. If a piece of content goes viral and then everyone forgets about it, it's no big deal. You can do it again. Just keep making good content. Sometimes the things that go viral, like you said, are very unexpected. That has happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to all three of us at various times. And then again, once something goes viral, there's two choices. Most of the time, especially if it's the first thing that goes viral, I always tell people you should ignore it. Just don't worry about it. Because if you get stressed out about it and you try to attach to it, you're going to start making mistakes and you're going to get stressed out. But if you feel pretty confident in your ability to think about your life or whatever, just look at it and go, why do people like this? How can I give people more of these things, without just repeating the exact same thing. So.
Question about that, because I'm sure we've all seen someone who goes viral very quickly. You've never heard of them before and they pop up.
Talk to it.
There you go, and you don't necessarily...
No, it's real. She's got a lot of money now, so it works pretty good.
That was one example where it was monetizable. There are some people that do and don't capitalize on that. I would love to know, what is your guys' perspective of some of your fellow content creators, the stories you've heard from people within your sphere, your coworkers, per se, who went viral very, very quickly, and some did capitalize on it, some were able to maintain that momentum, whereas others didn't. What is the differentiating factor between those that found that long-term niche and success versus those that just fizzled out?
I feel like you've probably seen a lot of people who've done dance trends and then they do it, see you later, bye-bye. Whatever, not what you did, right? And I'm curious is there a reason for that, or do you consider it pure luck? It can't be pure luck if you've been doing it for even 2 years, but.
I mean, I have seen a lot of creators have, one video that gets 100 million views and then, they make a misstep and it all goes away. I can think of endless examples. There was one creator who did this one little dance where he just did this little hop, and he did this video probably 1,000 times. And for a while it worked, and then it kind of fizzled out because he just wasn't growing from it. Like he just did the same thing over and over.
It went viral, and he was like,
yeah,
I guess we'll do it again.
He did it
I've just kept posting it.
I think he went viral 4 years ago, and he is still doing it.
Not to be this person, but the cough dance, right? That's
yes.
the thing you did, went viral. I feel like I've noticed that you almost, and I love this, have a little bit of an antagonistic relationship with the people who want you to do it again. I think that's really smart because it, again, gives them kind of what they want, but you're also saying, no, I'm doing other things as well.
Yeah,
I don't know if you have anything to say about that, because that went viral. I don't even remember when, but.
Yeah, the cough dance went viral like 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and I'm experiencing right now that 15 minutes of fame kind of thing. And I'd say I'm using what I've learned to capitalize on it, which is I'm not just doing the cough dance over and over, but I am making cough dance related content. I'm giving people what they want, which is, more of the meme, but I'm not singularly doing it. I'm posting other things too, and I'm slowly, I'm making related content that also shows people why they should stick around. I'm showing off some of my visual effects skills. I'm doing the cough dance, but improving the dance, and I'm trying to expand on it to try and capitalize on it.
Just because you go viral doesn't mean that you can monetize that. Part of having a long-term sustainable career as a content creator is being able to put food on the table, keep a roof over your head, being able to continue to make that content. And for some people, many content creators have side jobs, but many content creators have had to find untraditional or traditional ways to monetize. Could you share with me, if you guys are open to it, some of the ways that you monetize your content so that you can create a decade-plus long career?
For a long time, you just have to have a job like a normal person. You just got to work at a place and make money, and then you go and make videos. I feel like maybe this is not true of everyone, but I feel like pretty quickly, if your videos take off, you'll be making enough money that you can do it like above a certain threshold. So I don't know if I don't currently have any non-traditional, ways of making money online, as they would say. But I think most people, you just have a job and you make videos, and then there's like a graph where the videos get more popular and how much you hate your job, it comes down, and then it crosses over, and then you quit and you make content.
And most people, I'm sure everyone here is familiar, there's 3 main monetization streams. The first is that direct AdSense. So for example, when you post a video on Meta or Facebook, the amount of views directly correlates with how many ads are run in between that content, and you as a content creator get a certain percentage. Then there's brand deals or sponsorships, where a brand deal, like a favorite beverage will actually reach out to a content creator, or a sweatshirt brand an apparel brand will say we want to sponsor you to create a piece of content or feature us in your videos. And then there's affiliate revenue, where a content creator can put an affiliate link or product inside their content and actually earn revenue, or tag a product on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, or TikTok shop and actually earn a percentage of that sale. But there are things such as community memberships like Patreon. There's merch. There's things that kind of go beyond the traditional, where I'm sure you've seen many creators having courses. Merrick, have you ever explored different monetization opportunities, and what has really stood out to you?
No. Honestly, my only source of income ever has been brand deals. Well, that's not true. YouTube Shorts has paid me before, but it's not too much. I'm fortunate enough to have 2 parents who work full time and were able to support me while I was first starting. And I got very lucky in 2022. I got a lot of followers, and that means that I, am now fully supported by brand deals. But I'm not a very good person to give advice on this because I'm an outlier. I got extremely lucky, and now I can support myself because of that. But I'm sure you can probably speak more to this.
You might have to restate the question because I zoned out for a second. I think I know loosely, just in terms of income streams that are available, right? Each one has pros and cons. There's really big pros to brand deals. Usually they have more money. Then there's really big pros to Patreon. That's a really sticky audience. These are people who are on your team, who are going to stick around and help you out. The greatest source of revenue in the world is, well, for content creators, is YouTube AdSense. It pays more than anyone. It's like, yes, they take a cut, but YouTube Shorts pays a heck of a lot better than any of the other Shorts platforms, and AdSense pays a heck of a lot better than anyone else as far as I know. All of the different revenue streams that you can create for yourself have risks associated with them. But that's what I have to say about that.
No, it's that risk-reward benefit, right? Even as a content creator, you want to promote the brands or take the sponsorships that you love without selling out. Because if you sell out, you alienate your audience.
Yes, and Patreon, to some extent, insulates you from that, right? Or whatever sort of a course or YouTube memberships. They insulate you from that a little bit, because those people will have a much higher tolerance for you selling out, because ostensibly you're creating some kind of exclusive content for them that is not bound by whatever rules you feel that you need to follow if you're taking a brand sponsorship. Most of these, is it even possible to make money from one viral video? Kind of not really, right? Like, one is just, if you're coming out of nowhere, it's not necessarily worth that much, unless, like Haley Welch, you spin it, Hotla, for those who don't know, spin it incredibly, and I don't even mean this in a bad way, but spin it incredibly cynically into a whole bunch of new revenue streams. You can really only do that if you're talking like top tier viral content, like everybody knows your name. If you kind of have like a mid tier, like, oh, 2 million people watch this, basically, in terms of money, it's useless. It's a little bit of validation, and that's helpful. Don't take it too seriously, and just keep making great content, is what I would say.
Well, Austin, I think you perfectly described the viral trap. Someone creates content, they want to go viral, they get that piece of content, but then how do they maintain it? How do they capture an audience, create that community, or create an income stream that allows them and affords them the ability to continue creating content? If you guys were speaking to another content creator that you're mentoring, who is struggling to go viral and to make sure that their career lasts beyond that 15 minutes. They want it to be a decade-long or 30-year career. What is the most valuable piece of advice that you would give to them? Merrick, would you like to start?
Sure. Honestly, the reason I see most creators stop is not because their channel dies, but because they burn out and don't enjoy it anymore. And so the piece of advice that I give to creators who really want to have longevity is to just make sure you're enjoying what you do, and if you don't enjoy it anymore, pivot slightly. For a while, I honestly burned out in like 2023 doing dance content, and so I pivoted to visual effects, and I kept making content, and it worked out. Now I enjoy dancing again, and so that's the piece of advice that I give, I'd say.
Somebody once told me, and this I'm sure is not true in all cases, as nothing is, and I might have been from a movie, so maybe when I say someone told me, I just mean I heard it in the Steve Jobs movie or something, But somebody said something like, there's no such thing as burnout. Burnout is boredom. If you're bored making what you're making, this is true of anything you're doing, whether you're writing a book, or if you're making content, or if you're working in a restaurant, burnout is boredom. It means that your brain is bored. If you're excited, you don't get burnt out. So changing what you do helps. Sometimes it turns out there's this funny thing that happens where putting in a little more work can help you feel less tired, because you're doing things that you're interested in doing. And that is so, so, so important. Obviously, there's a lot of nuance there. There is such a thing as doing what you want to do while not doing what people want to see, and you have to find some kind of overlap there. But that always resonated with me, and it reminded me of what you just said. Like, burnout is boredom. Not always true. If you're working in a restaurant, which I've done, burnout can just be you work too many hours. You got to be mindful of that too. Don't work yourself to the bone. But if you find that you're not getting very much done, and you're not able to have the attention to put that much time into stuff, the issue might be that you're bored, not that you're tired. So just keep that in mind.
And I think you've explained that content creator conundrum, right? How do I create something that I'm passionate about, that I can do every single day, but there's still aspects of this job that are a job at the end of the day, especially if you want it to be a 15-year plus career. Yeah, and I love the idea that burnout is just boredom. So the solve to that would then be chase your excitement.
Yeah.
When have you done that, Austin? Because even though
Every day.
Every day, tell me more. How has your
constantly.
content pivoted over the years?
I mean, it's a tricky thing. And people always ask stuff like this, and you're like, how do you come up with cool ideas that are exciting? And obviously, like, the answer is be curious, but then the follow-up is how? And you're like, I don't know, watch a lot of TV or like read stuff. If I could solve that problem, or if you could solve that problem, like if you're trying to make content, if you can solve the curiosity problem, which can be in any form, it can be about any topic, if you can solve the problem of being interested in things and getting excited about things, that's like the golden ticket right there. It wavers, but I haven't come up with a good answer to that question there. Like, how do you maintain curiosity? Because at least for me, at least right now, it comes very naturally. Maybe one of you two have some insight.
Well, and you know, Mark, you have the perfect example where you went from just dance videos to VFX. And that worked really well for your audience and probably created new audience members for you. But how did that impact the financial side? How did that impact brand deals? Did it open up new doors for you? Or did any of your existing sponsors fear that change?
No, it actually, I was lucky enough that it absolutely opened new doors for me. And now, as it so happens, the majority of brand deals I get actually ask me to do visual effects content.
Is that annoying? That you're like, I learned how to do all this and it's a lot of work, and then people are like, you gotta keep doing that, and you're like, ah.
No, thankfully I enjoy it.
Good.
Yes.
As you have to.
Yeah, I mean, I work hard to make sure that I'm always, trying new things and learning new techniques. It can be a struggle, but I do still enjoy it.
How did you know that you wanted to make visual effects?
Zach King.
Oh.
Yes.
The King, as we said.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was just, you had a passion for it, and you were like, why can't I take what I'm interested in and put it into my content, basically?
Yeah, I
as
mean,
soon as you did that, things went great.
Yeah, my content strategy for a long time has basically been just make things that you think are cool. And I thought that Zach King's videos were super cool. And so there's, examples of me when I was 9 using iMovie trying to recreate his videos.
Hard to do in iMovie.
Yeah, well, it's impossible. But I tried anyways. I kept going at it, and I was enjoying it, and then I was able to incorporate it with my content. And now I just, every time I see a movie that I think is cool or something, a book that I imagine would look cool on a screen, I try and create it.
How does that work for you? Do you have that same thing where you get bored? Because again, what you do is a little bit different. It's a little bit more in service of. So do you get bored and have to come up with new ideas? Like, how does that manifest for you, or are you like, I don't even need to do that?
I think from my perspective, there's a little bit of both. As someone who is medically and clinically trained to help people with their skin and who has worked with doctors and dermatologists, you see the same people or different people coming in with the same issues, from acne to rosacea. But each person has a different story. So you can give them that same answer in a way that works for them. One girl might have acne because she's a teenager and she's really stressed at school. Or another person might be a man in his 40s or 50s feeling like he should have grown out of his acne by now, and he's struggled with scarring, and things like acne didn't work for him. And so being able to give the right insights or connect them with the right products and resources is important.
And is that just exciting in and of itself? Like just getting to help people, I guess helping people is exciting. So is that kind of where that comes from?
Yeah, on a personal level. But like you said, it's also about chasing excitement. So is there a news story or something that's happening in media that I can then take and turn this into a piece of content about a celebrity's skincare routine or about a health epidemic, something that's happening in the world and that relates to skin. And that's at least how I approach it. And then what's great about that is the sponsorship opportunities that allow me as one source of monetization to keep that content consistent. And also speaking of sponsorships, I'd love to know, could you tell me a little bit about a sponsorship that you did that really stood out to you? What was your favorite sponsorship and why? And maybe a dream one.
My guy Jake's gonna love this. Listen, I love all my sponsors. Every single one's always done me well. But I can't name them because I haven't been paid to do so here. No, I like doing sponsorships. I think it's. Do you both do sponsorships? Yeah, you do. It's like, as long as what's sponsoring you is a thing that functions, as long as it's not a scam, it's not that hard. Just to be like, here's the thing, and this is what it does, and if you want it, there it is. I mean, obviously you dress it up a little bit more like that, but yeah, I'm not going to name specific sponsors because then the ones that I don't name, not that they would hear it, but you want to keep things fair. These people are all wonderful, they're all nice. I do love MeUndies a lot. I'm a big fan of those underpants. But you know, I got no special preference to any one of them. They're just sponsors.
And I think what's unique about the sentiment, at least on the stage, is the fact that sponsorships are a gift. They're good. I think we would all